Hello and welcome back, boys and girls, to a new installment of Mind the Force, a nerdy podcast about Star Wars and mental health. I'm your host, Kristine McPartlin, and I know you missed me, XOXO Gossip Girl. But in all seriousness, it's been a minute, and I humbly apologize for the wait. Life has a great way of lifing a little too hard. And sometimes the things that we love most, i.e., Star Wars podcasting, takes a little bit of a backseat for a bit. But we are back in the cockpit and very excited for what's going to be an epic episode. Episode 9, to be exact. We are taking a good long look at the galaxy's favorite Wookiee, none other than Chewbacca himself. I am very pleased to be joined on this journey by two experts in their own right. Actor and Star Wars nerd extraordinaire, Mr. H.B. Gibson, as well as psychotherapist and author of her new book, The Rise of Rage, Julie Christiansen. But, as always, before we get into the big business, we have some little business. To stay up to date on everything Mind the Force, please check us out in all the places. There's mindtheforce.com, Mind the Force Instagram, Mind the Force Facebook. And for all the latest episodes, please follow, subscribe, and share on all your favorite streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, etc., etc. Hit the link tree and you'll find all the stuff to do all the things. Shoot us the 5-star ratings. Email me all your big Star Wars thoughts, questions, and feels at mindtheforcepodcast@gmail.com. First, listen to this pod, then go do all of that immediately. That's an order. And last, but never least, our content spoiler warning. Mind the Force podcast is a retrospective on all Star Wars characters across all Star Wars content. All films, TV shows, novels, comic books, and video games are up for discussion. If you don't want some aspect of currently released Star Wars content to be spoiled, you know the drill. I turn around now. Now, I proudly introduce my lovely guest co-host for this deep dive on Chewbacca, Mr. H.B. Gibson. HB is an actor, voice actor, producer, director, and composer. He's mostly known for the voice of The Watcher in the Roblox horror game, Aphorophobia Chapter 2, Escape from Reality, in 2003 by Polaroid Studios. Established in the horror gaming community for his voice acting, HB can also be heard as Officer Burton in the video game Bloodwash in 2001, as well as the lead voice actor for the player-controlled protagonist, David, in The Night at the Gates of Hell, 2022, by Torture Star Video and distributed by the king of retro-styled horror games, Puppet Combo. Please welcome Mr. H.B. Gibson. Hello, HB. Welcome to Mind the Force.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
It is an honor to have you. I'm very excited to talk about our big furry friend today.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
Chewbacca.
right, Chewbacca, the best sidekick anyone could ever ask for.
Absolutely. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's intelligent, and you know something? That is a friend that I think everybody could use.
Right? The loyalty is just
Yes.
off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much I need my friend to, like, owe me a life debt,
Right.
but, I guess it's a great foundation for a friendship. I can imagine it's no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, they do take their life debts very seriously, and I mean, you can't do any worse than have somebody that, like, that just has your back, like through thick and through thin, and no matter what. And who Chewbacca is. I mean, he's that big. He's not just a big walking carpet. He was an integral part of the galaxy far, far away, and I'll have him as a co-pilot anytime.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like it's a lot of what I wanna talk about today is this will be the soapbox that I stand on,
Yeah.
that I think Han gets too much hype, and
Yep.
Chewie gets pushed to the side so often when Chewie, as we have found out through research for this pod, is so
Mm.
badass,
Yeah. I mean, he's 200 years old, number 1. Uh,
right?
so that means he has some years on him. He has some wisdom on him. He's probably seen it all and done it all. And to have someone with that type of wisdom and that type of loyalty, I mean, come on. I mean, it's any wonder that that Han is actually still, I think that's to this very day, throughout all the adventures that Han Solo has ever had. If Chewie wasn't by his side, he would have been dead long time ago.
Oh, he would've been so dead. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, he would've died in all sorts of ways.
yeah.
In absolutely all sorts of ways. Like, I don't even think he would have been involved, like, he wouldn't have made it
No,
to A
he
New
wouldn't.
Hope. I don't even
Exactly.
think he would have survived, or he never would have been in that situation. Like, he never would have
Absolutely.
been there in the cantina when Obi-Wan and Luke were there, and it's so even Chewie's the one who brought them over.
Exactly, exactly.
Like,
Han, yes, Han can handle himself in a gunfight, of course, but, I mean, during those real seriously sticky situations, with bounty hunters after him and everything, I'm sh listen, if if it wasn't for Chewie, he would have been caught. He would have been done.
right? Who knows if he even would have become a smuggler? Because even whether you're talking canon versus
Mhm.
legends,
Yes.
and we're gonna get into these in more detail, but in
Right.
legends, he's an imperial officer. Who
Yes.
knows if he would have, like, popped off against his superiors if he
Right,
wasn't defending Chewie,
right.
or if you go canon in the Solo movie, how
Yeah.
would he have gotten out of that cage without
E
Chewbacca?
exactly, but you know something, and I really wish they would have done that, if they would have just kept that deleted scene where he disobeyed a direct order as he was flying. I think he was flying a TIE fighter or one of the Imperial fighters, and he disobeyed a direct order, and he had to go before a tribunal, and he had on the Imperial outfit, and he said, they said, "Well, okay, well, we're going to put you in a different position." He's like, "Oh, do I get to fly?" And then one of the Imperial officers says, "Oh yes, you will be flying." And then in that next scene, that's where you see Han, being thrown in the air by an explosion onto the mud, onto that planet. So
Damn.
so
That would
they
have been a good scene, and it sounds
oh,
so
man.
quick. But,
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
I guess
good.
I'm not a director. Like, you know more about directorial decisions and all of that, but I can't imagine it's easy to decide what to cut,
Yeah, the director's cut of Solo, please.
right? Immediately. Actually, it's funny, I don't know if you saw Dune yet, Dune Part 2.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, oh my god, I saw it last weekend, it was so good.
Oh, man, it had that big movie vibe that I've
Right?
longed for so long. There was only a few
Right?
movies that came that close. I think the only one that came that close, I to me, was Avengers Endgame. That's the only thing. It was
Yeah.
it was either Avengers Endgame, and I think it was, let's see, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Ooh,
Those,
Winter
yeah, those were like the best films for me as far as fun was concerned.
Right? It's
Yeah.
it was one of those movies that you gotta see it in theaters.
Yeah. Oh,
You have
yeah.
to see it big, and you need the sound, and you need, like, just that big, because they did such a great job with cinematography with, like, immersing you
Mhm.
in the scene that you just needed that big screen experience.
It had me at that opening line, and I don't even remember what the translation was, the closed caption was that translated what was said, but
Mhm.
somebody used, as they say, the voice. Um,
Right?
yeah, and I was like, the moment I heard that, I was like, "Yo, that." that took me back to, like, good big sci-fi films because the Dune that I remember, I saw the one that was back in the '80s with Patrick Stewart.
I've
Yeah,
only seen clips from it, I haven't gone and watched the whole thing.
and Sting.
Right, that for me is the best. I and see, that's the best part about the '80s is just the number of just random rock stars that were in films.
And
Like, I
the
can never
music
get
was
over
by
Bowie and Pan's Labyrinth, like,
yeah, and the music was by Toto, come on.
that's amazing. That is
Okay,
amazing.
okay, we went from Star Wars to Dune, but hey, hey,
Right, right.
hey,
And you know what?
but
I
that's
bring that
what
up to
Star Wars
say
came from.
that, and we can go anywhere in Mind the Force. The Force is a
Yeah,
big place. I guess I bring up Dune to say that Villeneuve, I believe is the director's last name,
yeah, no,
he was saying that the cuts he had to make were insane, and he's like, "It's already 2 hours and 45 minutes.
mhm,
We'd be here for 5 hours if I
right,
didn't cut this."
right.
And I'm like, "Ah, the quality of the scenes he must have had to cut were probably crazy."
Well,
So good.
they can always go the Zack Snyder route.
Oh my god, I never even finished that Justice League, it was so long.
It was long yeah, it was one of those things where you're gonna have to, like, put it on pause, maybe go somewhere, go to the store, something like that, come back,
Right?
and then
Like,
finish yeah,
take it in parts, like a
but it
long form podcast.
yeah. But if you do watch it from beginning to end, there were just things that were in that film that just really tied everything together. The original Zack Snyder cut, I'm sorry, the Jo you it doesn't hold a the Joss Whedon cut doesn't hold not even a little tiny LED light to that to the Zack Snyder, Justice League.
Uh,
And let's just hope that James Gunn can do something with it, I'm willing to give him a chance. Okay, back
right,
to Star
right,
Wars.
we're back to Star Wars. Being Star Wars fans, we're big believers in giving people chances.
Yes. Oh,
Yes,
yes. Yeah.
and we believe that Dave Filoni can retcon anything.
Yeah.
Um, but as we circle around the galaxy,
Yes.
we will come back to our man Han Solo and
Yes.
his very deep and loving friendship with Chewbacca.
Yeah.
But first, we wanna look at Chewbacca's early life. We got
Mhm.
190 years
Yes.
before he meets Han.
Uh-huh.
So, for those that don't know, Chewies oh, not Chewie, Wookiees can live to be, like, 400 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of, like, I guess, part of, like, the legendariness of it. Like, anytime you see a
Right.
Wookiee, everyone's like, "Whoa, a Wookiee." Like,
Yeah.
it's like they're taken aback, like, they're this big legendary character. I think that's so cool because they are so formidable.
Yes.
Like, they must be, like, what, like, 7 feet tall and covered in fur and so strong, but so smart.
That's right.
So smart. A lot of like, there isn't a ton about Chewie's early life, like, certainly nothing in the films. A
Right.
lot of what we derive is from actually from the comic books,
Yes.
which are particularly wonderful. I
Mm,
really enjoyed reading the Chewbacca comic books.
mm.
There was this particular series that happens after Chewbacca dies in the novels. So this is
Yeah.
the Legends content.
Yeah.
Obviously, in canon, he's still alive, and we'll continue that with his story with Han.
Yeah.
But in the books, he
They
oh,
kinda
sorry.
went they kinda went with the, "Oh, Chewbacca died-ish." Uh,
Right,
yeah, okay, we won't have Chewbacca die. We won't, go to we'll give the fans a little bit of something from the books to make them happy, so we won't have him die. We'll have him die-ish. Okay.
right, diet. And and somehow Chewbacca came back, or Chewbacca returned.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also get that. I mean, being that Lucasfilm basically, like, let writers write whatever they wanted, but George
Yeah,
Lucas wanted nothing to do with it. It's like,
right.
okay, Chewbacca couldn't have died on that moon if he wasn't saving Han and Leia's kids who
Yes.
weren't the same as they were in the sequels. Like,
Right,
so
right.
I get it. Continuity. We
Yeah,
understand. It's a big galaxy. There might be multiple dimensions. Who knows? I don't know these things.
yeah.
Um, but so there's this great comic book series that came out in 2000. It
Yes.
was a Dark Horse comic series called
Dark
Chewbacca.
Horse, Dark Horse.
Yeah.
I still say, and I will stand flat-footed and say that the Dark Horse Star Wars comics were better than Marvel.
I could
Eh,
agree with that.
you know, with
I could
with
agree with that.
there's only with only one slight exception to the Darth Vader comics. The Darth Vader comics
Oh.
were pretty darn good, and we found out I think it was, Darth Vader number 2 where we saw a familiar Imperial officer that we thought died on the Death Star.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wait, who was that
yeah,
again?
he was the one that said, what did he say? He said, "Without those data plans, we are vulnerable."
Oh, yes. Oh, I couldn't tell you what his name is, but I remember the face. And I
Yeah,
remember, like, isn't it like a scene where I don't know, there's almost like a comment about it. Like, they bring it up
yeah,
in the comic. And it's like, but if you, like, didn't know who it was and you didn't know. No, but that was great. I loved the Vader comics.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Like, just it went so deep with, like, trying to bring Padme back to life and, like, everything, like, discovering with the Jedi temple and, like, what was it? The prison that I forget the name of. I talked about it in my Anakin episodes. It's
yeah,
so good. Everything's so
yes,
good. But but the Dark Horse comics, I can agree. I think those are
yes,
majority superior.
yes,
And this Chewbacca run was excellent.
yeah,
So excellent. And what it really centers around is stories from like people who loved Chewbacca, like stories about him. And it's really cool. Like they talk to his wife Mala. It's R2D2 and C3PO going around, basically getting like oral history. Like they're
yeah,
collecting
yes,
stories about Chewbacca for a memorial.
right,
And because basically, I guess, if you're going in the Legends chronology, you know that Chewie died in the book. So now you're reading this comic that came out afterwards. And so you know that he's dead.
yeah,
And so they talk to his wife and they talk to his dad and they talk to like other people who he saved. They talk to Lando, and that's a very funny story. And of course, they talk to Leia. And I guess I love, like, different portrayals of characters because everyone's perspective is so interesting. Like,
yes.
his wife just, like, sounds frisky. Like, she just talks
Yeah.
about how hot he was.
Yeah, I
And she
remember.
oh my god, she talks about, like, how they met, and she's like, "He was so tall and handsome." And I was like, "Okay, calm down." Like, and my favorite was I guess my 2 favorites were Han and Leia. Because
Yeah,
Leia, oh my goodness, it was a whole different side of her that I don't think we get to see in any other content. This seems like a very isolated thing,
yes,
where she pretty much talks about how jealous she was of Chewie,
mhm,
as far as his relationship with Han and how Han could be open with him and honest in himself. And she talks to the droids about how, everyone treats me like a princess, like this leader. Like, I don't remember the last time I spoke with Luke as a brother. I don't remember the last time I spoke with Lando as a friend. And
yeah,
even my husband, like, puts me on this pedestal. And it makes me feel like there's this wall between me and everyone else. And then he just turns to Chewie and he's just this whole other person. And I want to be that person for him. And she's like, sometimes I
yeah.
wish you'd go away. And I was like, damn, that's deep. It was this whole other side of Leia, just, like, in this comic book in, like, the beginning of the 2000s, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Fuck." That's so deep. Because how internal, like, all 'cause think of all the different relationships, like, we have in our lives,
yeah,
and you know what? I actually heard a great quote today. It was a great conversation from another podcast. It was Trevor Noah's podcast,
Trevor Noah. Oh,
and
yeah,
And I wish I could remember who he was talking to. I'd have to look at the clip. But he talked about how our friends are like horcruxes, like Harry
yeah,
Potter, Voldemort horcruxes. How we give a little bit of ourselves to everyone we meet, and like even though it could feel similar, it's all a little different. Like everyone gets a little different piece of you,
yes,
and it's And so interesting to think about it that way, how, like, you have a special relationship with everyone
Yes,
in
you
your
do.
life, from your friends to your parents to your partner to your siblings, and for her to just feel some type of way that she's not getting that part from her husband.
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, Nick getting me all my feelings, Dark Horse, man," like, I'm like and like
That's why Dark Horse is like I mean, when you read the Marvel ones, yeah, you get the action, you get the story and everything, but I mean, there was just something about the Dark Horse comic books where there was so much like, there was so much more in depth,
right?
you know?
Made you think.
Yeah.
Made you think and, like, made you feel more engaged with the characters.
Yeah, I never thought that I would get to the point of rage and hate towards Emperor Palpatine when I read the Dark Empire run. There was a Dark Empire, and then there was Dark Empire 2, and that was the one where Palpatine literally had, like, scores of clones made of him,
Mm.
and he almost turned Luke. He was very close to be to turn into the dark side.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
I
it was wild,
yeah.
but back
I mean, but even something like that, I feel like that level of emotional depth
mhm,
sometimes makes more sense than the films,
yeah,
because that would be great content to then explain, like, Luke's behavior later,
yes,
where it's like he almost is, I guess, not quite a gray Jedi, which also isn't, like, another canon thing,
right,
but just that neutrality where it's
mm,
like, you know what, maybe not everything that the Jedi, like, followed and believed in was so great, like, maybe
yeah,
there's, like, room for both.
right,
And see something like that where it's like, Emperor, like, can turn his head, like, because if you I mean, as I sit here with my little Darth Maul bobblehead, um,
oh,
I will say that, like, by the end of Darth Plagueis, I was just like, "Well, that made a lot of sense." Like, I couldn't I will say I can't totally turn my back on the dark side because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I mean, they play the long game. They make plans, and they're very logical."
yeah, they are.
Not I mean, they know how to work a room.
Yeah,
They know
yeah,
how to get things done.
yes, yes,
Um, and so just, like, to, like, show that realism about it.
mhm,
That it's
mhm,
like, you know what, people aren't these, like, saintly figures like the Jedi expected you to be with no feelings
yeah,
and, like, this, like, straight and narrow path and ignoring your emotions and just repressing them.
right, right,
Um, it's a very common theme here at Mind the Force that I am, like, not always on side Jedi. Like, I
yeah,
think the Jedi
yeah.
were a super problematic cult religion.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the reason why, as time went along, even, Yoda noticed and Mace Windu started to notice that, that some of the younglings and some of the, Jedi were starting to kinda show, like, a little bit of disgruntledness, you know, he said, I think Yoda said, say, "Yes, even the older," well, they're starting to, like,
Yeah.
act out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I mean, and it makes sense, like, that's
Yeah.
even, I think, what modern churches face
Mhm,
today, is that,
mhm.
like, old customs don't really hold with the modern world.
Yeah,
And even in the days of, like, the Old Republic, Jedi could get married. Like,
yeah,
Jedi were allowed to have relationships, like, it did not hinder
right,
their ability to I mean, back then they weren't obviously like the warriors that they would
right.
come later,
Well,
but
something must have happened along the way
right.
where, um, jealousy and, anger, and hate and everything, you started to see the emotions take place, and I guess when the Jedi saw that and how it could potentially move you to the dark side, to deny
Yeah.
yourself of possessions, to deny yourself of emotional attachment because you had to stay focused, be one with the force because you dedicated yourself to defending people, to help people, for righteousness and everything, even at the cost of being you, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm quite sure that somewhere in Jedi history that there was probably like a huge fallout
Right,
be be
something,
between 2 Jedi, and it was probably over a woman,
right?
or over a man,
Yeah, I
or
think I think that because 'cause I'm trying to think I'm doing one of my next episodes is gonna be about an Old Republic character, which I won't reveal now.
okay.
But researching that character, it really has been like the Tales of the Jedi, like Old Republic comics, like before the Sith War and like
Yeah.
before Revan and like all that
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
And I think about like there was a certain point where like 2 Jedi were hooking up and this other Jedi was upset about it because they were on
Mm,
this mission.
yeah.
Maybe he didn't wanna be a third wheel,
Mm.
I don't
Right.
know. And
Yeah.
it's the yeah, no, situations like that, and so I haven't come across the exact point when the Jedi change, if there
Right.
is an exact point, because it could just be Legends versus canon content.
Yeah.
Like, maybe George Lucas is like, "They were never allowed to get married," and everyone else is like, "But what if they were?" Like,
Right.
so I don't
Uh,
know,
they
but it's
they just
I don't know.
really just ripped George Lucas's main thing to pieces. Anyway.
Right?
Oh,
Right, we could yeah.
no, side note, the Imperial officer that I was talking about, the one that was not on the Death Star when it blew up,
Mhm.
was General Taji. He was the one that said, "And until this battle station is fully operational, we are vulnerable. The Rebel Alliance are
Exactly.
too well equipped. They're more dangerous than you realize."
Oh, that's the and see, that's why you're the voice actor, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Brava, brava,
Thank you, thank you,
brava.
thank you, thank you.
Oh my gosh. No, that is a good find, and I love those little Easter eggs. I'm just like, "Hey, that" it's like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like, "That guy." Like, "That's the one." But yes, back to our non-force user as we
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, we love a tangent. We love a tangent here at Mind the Force.
Oh, good.
Um, but I think that something and actually something maybe that would have been helpful to the Jedi is to maybe have more Wookiees around in their infinite wisdom because they did live these long ass lives and had all these amazing skills.
Yes.
All these amazing skills. What was cool about these stories, especially about younger Chewie, particularly from his wife and his father, were, I guess, learning a little bit about, like, Wookiee adolescence, which, of course, probably lasts, like, 50 years because of their long lives. And the young men, they're really interested in, like, technology and mechanics and flying
Yes.
and, like, tinkering and fixing things, but there's
Mhm.
still this very, like, naturalistic living in trees warrior society.
Yeah.
Like, it's this really cool, well-rounded balance.
They're very, very attached to nature, not too much on like the Na'vi.
Right,
They respect nature, they respect the trees, they respect life. And it all works together, and it's like that wonderful, beautiful wisdom. I wish I could really sit down and talk to maybe one of the Wookiee elders and just get his point of view on life, and
right,
take it all the way back to the early days of Kashyyyk, and how did they solve their problems? Were there any fights among factions? And how was it solved? What lessons were learned? Did anybody get wiser after that? What was put in place after all that happened to make sure that that doesn't happen again?
right,
Mm,
and then it'd be interesting to know, like, what like, what bits of wisdom didn't stand the test of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how have their customs evolved
Mhm.
throughout the years? I mean, because even over the course of one's life, customs could evolve. Like,
Right.
when lives aren't short, it's interesting. One, I think how you perceive time, and then how you perceive, like, what's important around you and keep
Mhm.
perspective.
Yeah.
But then also your customs change slower
Right.
because throughout your life, I mean, you can have drastic change. I think, like, anyone's capable of significant change depending on, I guess, what it is, but for the most part, we all keep our principles really, like, throughout our adult lives.
Yeah.
But how would that work if you were 400 years old? Like, would you have changes of heart? Would you I mean, I guess someone like Yoda who was, like, 900 years old, obviously,
Yeah.
he was stubborn for quite a long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that when you've been around, I mean, let's just face it, the older you get, the more experience you get, the wiser you get, you learn from your mistakes, and so now look at a Wookiee that's, like, 200 years old, 400 years old. I mean, there has to be, like, a ton of wisdom in there, and I just wanna hear it.
Right? Right, and it's so, so, so interesting because, like, the content obviously, the film content we get with Chewbacca, 1, it's very limited, it's very, like, side character,
Yeah.
and it's mostly, like, the comedic, like,
Mhm.
like, where, like, he's saying something that makes sense and you kinda get it, but, like,
Yeah.
you obviously don't get some sort of, like, subtitle translation.
Right.
So it's so nice in the comics and in the novels that you get to hear what he's saying. Like, you get to read it 'cause it'll literally be a little blurb that says translated
Mm.
from Kashyyyk
Yeah.
or, I forget what they call the language. Kashyyyk theory? Something like that.
Mhm.
And so it's nice to know what he's actually saying and thinking because Chewbacca is
Yeah.
incredibly intelligent. Like,
Yeah.
he is a warrior and a general and a leader of his people.
Absolutely.
He is really badass.
Mhm.
At one point, his father yeah, Mala talks about how they met,
Yeah.
but his father talks about when he had to fight this albino Wookiee
Ah,
who was
yes.
trying to, like, push up on Mala,
Yes, I
and
remember that.
yeah, he rolled up to Chewie on the rope bridge up in
Mhm.
the trees and said, "Mala won't pay attention to me because all she's thinking about is you," and Chewie
Mhm.
was like, "Okay."
Mhm.
Like, and so he was like, "We're gonna fight," and Chewie's
Yeah.
like, "Alright, bring it
Like,
on."
I was like, "Alright."
Like, "Let's go." And this is like young Chewbacca. This is like
Yes.
young, handsome, strapping Chewbacca,
Yeah.
according to Mala.
Mhm, mhm.
He had it going on.
Yeah.
She just wanted to brush his hair. She
Right.
was
Right,
with
right,
it.
right.
And so he fights this albino Wookiee who it's also playing dirty, like, you're not supposed to use your claws
Yeah.
when you fight, and, like, this guy didn't care, and Chewie ended up oh my god, it was so badass. So they
Yeah.
live very high in the trees.
Mhm.
Like, the trees on Kashyyyk are, like, incredibly tall, and so
Right.
the communities they build are on top of the trees, and if you fall down into the trees, like, you don't wanna fuck with what lives at the bottom of the trees.
Right,
Like, it's
right, right.
horrible down there, like, it's
Yeah.
horrible and twisted and dark,
Mhm.
and apparently it was like, this albino Wookiee, like it's kinda one of those things where, like, you're born different, and so you have to be, like, 10 times as, like, strong and competent
Yes.
as the people who aren't different looking. So this albino Wookiee who's just, like, going around basically being a big bully,
Right.
um, Chewbacca's like, "Okay, you wanna be big and bad up here? Like, let's see how you do down here with your white ass fur." That is not good for hiding in the dark, and so that's how that went. So that Wookiee definitely died.
Yeah.
And his family because Wookiees are very family oriented.
Yes.
Very family oriented. Like even Chewbacca always describes himself, like, as his with his full name. Wait, I wanna get it right. Where is his father's name? Because that's how he always describes himself,
Yeah, and
and
that
I
was
think it's hysterical.
and that was the reason why in Solo he said, "Look, I'm not gonna call you that, I'm just gonna call you Chewie."
Exactly, exactly. Oh, where is his father's name? I have it in my notes. Something with a T. Chewy, da 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 da. Fell from the planet Kashyyyk, Wookiee military turned. Okay, all right, Wikipedia, you're doing a lot. Oh yes, there it is. There it is. So he is Chewbacca, the son of Atachuk.
Atachuk, yes.
And that is how he introduced himself. And like you said in Solo, he's and Han's like, "Well, what's your name?" He's like, "I'm Chewbacca, son of Atachuk." And he's like, "Well, I'm not saying that every time." He's like, "How's Chewie?" And he's like, "All right, I guess." And so the albino Wookiee that he defeats in battle, like rightfully in this like kind of like honor battle, his family comes back into play later because they just blame Chewbacca.
Yeah.
They're just like, "Oh, you murdered our son. We're never gonna forgive you, your family, and we're gonna enact revenge on you one day, and that'll come back into play later."
Mhm.
And and it's just so interesting to hear about, like, I don't know, I guess just young Wookiee life, just all this probably testosterone flying around and like this society on one hand that's like quite advanced, very wise, very old,
Mhm.
but like you still always got like these young bucks like
Yeah,
going around slanging it
yeah.
around and being like, I'm the toughest guy on the block and I'm gonna get all the bitches. And that's I guess a pretty I feel like that's a continuity across sentient beings. I
Yeah,
feel like that is
oh,
not new.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. I think we've seen we've seen other films of beings and races of people where, one person looks at the other and they say like, "No, no, I'm the man. No, I'm the man. No, I'm the man." And then they battle. I'm tr I'm
There
ma
has
ma
to be a battle.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of what there was another it was either another film or another television show. I can't remember which one it might have been Planet of the Apes, maybe, I think.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it would be very on theme.
Yeah, 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 I mean, there were, like, a couple of, chimps that, one wanted to stand up to, Caesar, and I think Caesar got took him down or whatever. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Okay, well, that was a failed side mission. And so yeah, but out of all the Star Wars protagonists, the only real emotional one as far as like all the characters was appeared to be Chewbacca. Throughout the entire series was nothing but like normal, healthy, emotional responses, and was a real intelligent problem solver.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? And I think that just comes with time.
yeah,
That just and I think that's I mean, and I think that's what really rings true about what Chewbacca represents is that sense of, like, aged wisdom.
yeah,
Because, I mean, we're all like, everyone, I'm sure I mean, I know I have, I'm sure HB have,
mhm,
can admit that your youth was a messy time,
yeah,
that you made some silly choices,
yeah,
and you were, like, passionate and impulsive and dumb and stubborn and prideful and
mhm,
all these things that now I mean, granted, I think we're both still pretty young,
yeah.
still lots of mistakes left to be made,
I'm still learning.
but right, you're still learning. You never stop learning, and one, I think that's the most important perspective one can get is to understand that you know nothing.
Yeah.
Know nothing at all, and just that I don't know, that quiet perspective and just knowing better, and that only comes from experience.
Right.
That's all we can do is just, experience life and live life and listen to the wisdom of our elders.
Yep. Learn
Oh,
if we don't learn from history, we're gonna be doomed to repeat it, and then you're gonna be looking at yourself like, "Why do I keep doing this?"
right.
Y
Right, whether it's on a global level or an individualistic level.
and you keep doing it over and over and over, and that's what we call stuck on stupid.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the keen definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and expecting a different
Ex
result.
expecting a change, yeah.
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 It's definitely I don't think it's something I mean, no, the Wookiees had it. The Wookiees had it, or else they wouldn't have kept getting enslaved by the Trandoshans.
Yeah.
Like that happened a lot.
Yeah,
That
it
happened
did.
quite a
It
bit.
did. It did.
like, across the board, it's just like, "Come on, Wookiees, like, go off. Go off, Wookiees, like, you don't need to do this." Like, another great bit of Chewbacca content
Mm,
is, like, pretty much, like, his age is very vague, like,
right,
we just know that when he meets Han, he's 190 years old. We don't get a lot of context on his age, like, there's no, like, BBY points,
right.
throughout the content that we do have.
Mm,
But at some point before his 190th birthday, there's a great point in the comics where he gets captured
mhm,
by a Trandoshan,
mm,
slaver. They're just
yeah,
everywhere, and they're always hunting these Wookiees,
yeah,
and they're particularly good at hunting Wookiees.
mm,
And, now I know what it was. It was actually still in the 2000 Chewbacca series, the 6 or 7 series comic book run from Dark Horse,
yes.
and one of the people that the droids interviewed was a Trandoshan who was quite old and, like, working as a bartender at a cantina.
Mhm,
And he talks about how he was, like, an excellent slaver. He was really successful, making a lot of money, was, like, known to be really capable, and everything was good until the day Chewbacca came on his ship.
mm.
Mm. He said, "Chewbacca ruined my life." And he captures Chewbacca, catches him off guard, is able to disarm him and capture him.
Right,
And Chewbacca wakes up on this ship, and he's, like, in, like, the hold, like, in the prison on the ship
yes,
with, like, mad other Wookiees.
right.
Like, this guy's collecting Wookiees like it's his job.
Mhm,
Um, and what he has, like, happen immediately is he wakes up and, like, the other Wookiees are in his face, like, "What's your name? What family are you from? What tribe are you from?" And he's like, "I am Chewbacca, son of Atachuk." And suddenly the Wookiees are just like, who, by the way, are standing there, like, handcuffs, like, they're chained and, like, they're in this, like, small ship prison, and they just start going like, "Oh, well, my grandfather, like, fought with your grandfather, and, like, so we're not gonna be friends," and so the guy's like, "Well, my family will always be loyal to the son of Atachuk," and just, like, all this strange arguing like, among these different factions of Wookiees in this prison.
mm,
And even, like, in a scene, the Trandoshan slaver who's, like, reflecting on back on this flashback says, like, "The only way that you, like, hold a Wookiee is to use another Wookiee." They're not gonna be held by chains, they're not gonna be held by blasters, like, if you wanna, like, imprison a Wookiee, you have to use another Wookiee.
right.
And I was like, "Dude, what does that mean?" And, like, pretty much what they I guess the sometimes the issue with an honor-based society, which I definitely wanna delve into more, is, like, a caste system.
Yeah.
And then these separate tribal caste systems where it's like, "Well, my tribe's better than your tribe, or my family's better than your family," whether you have more wealth or more land or more status, whatever it is. And so these imprisoned Wookiees are sitting here being like literally stopping each other from escaping, be like, "Oh, well, my family's better than yours, so you're not allowed to escape. Like, you're not allowed to
Mhm.
get out. Like, I can't let you have that kind of win." And literally like ripping each other back from like climbing out of the cage, like just so they could get one up on the other guy. And so
Why
Chewie's
does
and
that sound familiar?
mm. Mm. I
Uh-huh.
wonder
Y y
where
y
have
y
we
y
seen that
yeah,
before?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where a people tear other people down.
I mean, wow.
Mm.
I think the next time when I actually, start speaking on, how our society we could be like crabs in a barrel. I said, "Hey, what, man, no, our people ain't like crabs in a barrel. We're like Wookiees in a Trandoshan prison."
That's perfect. No, bust that out, especially among company
Yeah.
that watch Star Wars. They're gonna be like, "What did you just say?"
What did you just say? No, excuse me, I'm sorry, crabs in a barrel.
No, no. No, I used to be like, "Google it, look it up." Like, or no, 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 no. What you do is you tell them to go listen to Mind the Force. You ask them
Yes.
to subscribe to Star
There
and
you go,
Trek.
that's right. That's
They'll learn
right.
all about it. They'll learn all about it.
Mhm.
No, there are so many like direct references. I mean, as there is across Star Wars, from religion to political messages to environmental messages, like whether it's George Lucas content or Legends content, like the lessons are there, like Shakespeare style fables.
Yes.
And yeah, no, with the Wookiees, you see this a lot, like just like the direct comparison to disenfranchised communities in our own world,
Mm.
and how, like, especially in this story where, like, we're the ones holding ourselves back. Like we're bigger as a community rather than as the individual.
Right, right, right.
And that's really what like Chewbacca gets on his soapbox about once he's like in this prison with these other Wookiees, and he's like looking at them like they crazy. He's like, "What are you guys talking about? Like, we're like, I don't care if you're this family or that family, that doesn't matter in here. And here we're Wookiees and you're in chains.
Mm,
Like, what are you like looking at them like they are stupid?" They're just like, he's like, "What are you arguing about?" And he's like, we are Wookiees, we are warriors. Like, we don't have to do this. Like, these chains don't hold us." And he just like breaks the chains apart. He's
yep,
like the Trandoshan said, chains don't matter to a Wookiee.
right.
And then for some reason, like a squirrel storing nuts for the winter, Chewbacca just like spits out some like blaster parts out of his mouth. And he's like, "Okay." And this was the most MacGyver shit I've
Yep,
ever seen in my life.
it was probably
He just starts putting
yeah,
together a blaster. He's like, "Does anyone have another part?" And they just
mhm,
like put it
and then they put it
together.
all yeah, remember, yeah, they put it all
And
together.
for some reason there's a blaster. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure about that one. But it works. And yeah, they're able to gang together and
Sure.
very easily overtake the ship. Like, it
Yeah.
was never a thing. They just needed the right leadership and the right perspective.
Oh, we could just learn so much from them.
Right? Just right, just, like, work together and maybe you won't get screwed over all the time. Like, you can break your chains, you can take over your circumstances. I mean, I know this is a Star Wars pod, but anyone Black listening,
Yeah,
like
yeah, no, 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 yeah, no, my people need listen up. I
listen
know,
here.
I know.
Chewbacca has lessons to teach all of us. They're very important.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and that's beautiful because that's also really at the core what what the Wookiees are about. Like, they're a prideful people and
Yeah.
they're a strong people, and it's like, why are you guys sitting here in chains, like fussing about the stuff that doesn't matter? Like,
Mhm.
and so it was just this very powerful moment just to see him like rise up, especially what I assume wouldn't be super old of an age. Maybe at this point he's like 100 plus.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my favorite little guy, Lumpawaroo, his son, is in the picture yet.
No.
Um, I mean, we got a little glimpse of him, of course, in everyone's
Yeah.
favorite
Yes!
Christmas holiday special.
Yeah, the Life Day holiday special, the one that George does not claim.
Oh my goodness. I will say, like, as everyone who listens to Mind the Force knows, I am a newer fan.
Oh,
So I go back in the archives and
ah,
I'm catching
okay.
up.
At what
And
point
yeah,
did you
no,
start? At what point did you actually start?
I watched the first, like, full content I ever watched was season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Okay, alright, and then
Yeah, so it
oh,
was
wow.
2020. It was 2020, and it was the pandemic. Watched The Mandalorian, loved it. Like,
Mhm.
season 1 of The Mandalorian can stand alone.
Yeah, it
Like, you
can.
don't need to know anything about Star Wars to enjoy that.
Absolutely.
Which I love. There's very little standalone content,
Mhm.
and that one is absolutely delightful. Obviously, as it gets further in, like, you have, like, the bigger storyline comes into play, but season 1 is just, like, masterwork on itself.
Yeah,
Um
especially that first episode. I mean, my
Right?
god.
Oh, so good. I might rewatch that. I haven't watched that in a while.
Mhm.
And so then I had all this free time. It was
Mhm.
the pandemic. I'm working from home, stuck in my house. And I was like, you know what? I have time. Like, I have Disney Plus now, and I had time to watch all those Star Wars movies I always meant to watch.
That's
And
fantastic.
yep, and my roommate was a fan. She was down for the marathon. And so, like, over the course of like 2 weeks, we just like watched every Star Wars movie each day, like till we got through all 9 of them. Then, of
Mhm,
course, went back, watched Rogue One, watched Solo, and it took me a little bit, but I got through Clone Wars,
mhm.
and by the end of Clone Wars, I'm just in tears and in
Yeah.
love and in shock and awe, and I'm just like, "This is everything." And then I watched Rebels, and it was
Mhm.
even more everything,
Yeah.
and then it just snowballs from there, like, because then you have there's just so much wonderful content, and
Now
yeah, no, I was turned out by the end of Clone Wars,
now,
absolutely turned
I
out.
in what order did you watch the films?
I watch them in episode order,
Okay.
which I will always make the argument for episode order because I had tried to watch A New Hope years ago, and I
Yeah.
probably even got through most of it, but I didn't feel invested. I was like, I'm kind of watching this like kind of I mean at this point like old graphics movie from the 70s. I'm like, I don't really know why I'm invested in these characters. I don't understand why Darth Vader is so bad, and I'm not super into it. I can understand, especially like being a part of the zeitgeist of the time.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine like being a 7-year-old in the theaters, seeing that for the first time. It was like mind blowing,
Yeah.
probably absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
But of course, like that doesn't always hold unless you're a big fan.
Right.
And so then when I decided to watch it in episode order, I'm invested in these characters, like, I've
Mhm.
seen Anakin since he was a little boy, and now you're seeing
Right.
him grow up. You see his marriage with Padme, and you see him fall to the dark side. So by the time you get to episode 4, you're like, "Oh shit, that's the baby, and he's all grown up, and Leia's the other baby, and, like,
Mhm.
Darth Vader is still all bad and shit," and, like, so you're
Mhm.
invested in what's happening.
Right.
You're invested in the process, like, you're into the storyline. And
Right.
then, of course, you
Right.
add Clone Wars into it, and you just have the meat and potatoes.
You
Like,
know
that's where you're getting the details, like, you're seeing their marriage play out. You're seeing, like, his relationship with Obi-Wan. You get Ahsoka,
yeah.
and she's just a gift.
Yeah.
And it's all so good. I mean, obviously, you can tell from my Star Wars podcast, I'm obsessed.
Oh, I tried watching all the films in a different order, actually.
What'd you do?
I did go episode 1 and episode 2, but I skipped episode 3 and went straight to A New Hope, and then
Mm,
Empire, and then after Empire, then I went back to watch Revenge of the Sith,
why
and
do you think that was?
when you watch Revenge of the Sith and then Return of the Jedi, then get back to me.
Hmm, okay. I will try that.
Because
I'm gonna think about that, like, all weekend.
yep,
I don't know if I have time to watch other films, I got some stuff to do this weekend, but I'm gonna think about that very deeply.
because when you see, Anakin turn to the Force, to turn to the dark side of the Force,
Mhm.
and then the birth of Luke and Leia, when you go into Return of the Jedi, when Luke goes back to Dagobah, that conversation that they have when Yoda dies and he says, "I can't do it, R2. I can't go on alone." And then Obi-Wan was like, "Yoda will always be with you." It's like, "Obi-Wan," he said, you said that Vader betrayed and murdered my father. Betrayed and murdered my father." I said, "Your father was betrayed by the dark side. He ceased being Anakin Skywalker and then became Darth Vader. When that happened, the good man that was your father was destroyed. So, what I told you
Mm,
was true from a certain point of view." Okay, for
okay.
yeah, yeah. Hey,
Mhm.
I
Well,
studied.
I'm following it, I dig
Right?
it.
And then
Okay.
when he asked, he said, "Okay, Yoda spoke of another. The other is your twin sister." Like, "I have no sister." "Search your feelings, Luke." And then he said, "Leia. Leia's my sister." And then, oh no, I'm sorry, no. Obi-Wan was like, he said, when the Emperor knew as I did that if Anakin had any offspring, there would be a threat to them. That's the reason why your sister remains safely anonymous." And when he had that realization, Leia's my sister. Your insight serve you well.
Do you have all that memorized?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
very impressive.
so when you see the end of that part of Revenge of the Sith, where he is turned to the dark side, and that final battle between him and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which really wasn't their final battle, as we found out. That final battle in that particular film, we see him turn from who he was to, and then we see him get the parts and everything, and then that's where Obi-Wan says, "He's more machine now than man, twisted
Mm,
and evil." So
mm.
we saw that. So that's what I said.
Yeah,
When you watch
right.
Revenge of the Sith and then watch Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
all the
And I
connections.
and I like also the juxtaposition of, like, seeing Anakin fall to the dark side and then watching Luke be tempted by the dark side.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
I dig that. I see what you're doing. I see what you're
Yeah.
doing there. I like
Oh,
it, I like it.
you will see, because I remember, one fine, week when I wasn't working. I watched all the Star Wars films. I watched them all. Well, let's see, The Force Awakens, and let's see, The Last Jedi. When did The Last Jedi, I'm trying to remember what year The Last Jedi came out. Um,
Mm, that's a good question to Google. We are live and in action here at Mind Forth.
yeah,
Uh, 2017.
2017. Okay, that was, I think, probably around the time where I first met my lady, first met my fiance. And I remember watching I watched all the ones that I guess I watched it all the way up to The Force Awakens, that I guess. And that's when I went and I watched it again in that particular order with The Revenge of the Sith before Return of the Jedi, and it just really brought things into perspective. Yeah,
Mm. Alright, I like
yeah,
that. I love that, how I don't know, just how they can inform each other and, like,
yeah,
Easter eggs and, like, "Oh, like, that makes me connect that better," and,
mhm,
like, that I mean, that's world building.
yeah,
That's the best part about it is, like, just seeing the connect all the dots and, like, I'm not even mad at the sequels because I mean, story continuity, they're backtracking on that and they're fixing
yeah,
it now, and I'm fine with that. Because you absorb all the content and you see the bigger picture, it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
They were visually stunning movies.
yes,
They
yes, they
were
were.
gorgeous.
Yo,
If
oh,
you
they
don't pay attention to what they're saying, it was
Yeah,
gorgeous.
if you don't pay attention to the story, they were beautifully made films, as far as the effects and everything else. It's just that, as the fans have been trying to tell people, is that it was just the story.
Yeah,
We had no problems with Ray. I really, really like Ray a lot.
yeah.
It's just
Like,
that the way things were written was just, "Meh."
exactly. Like, Rey's story is like, once you actually, like, look at what Rey's story is, you're like, "That's cool."
Mhm,
Like, how she's like the daughter of like a failed clone experiment
mhm.
of Palpatine's
Right,
who escaped and
right.
like was hiding from him and had a kid. And that's who she is. And I'm like, "What?"
Basically.
Like, 1, didn't get that from the films.
Right.
Didn't get that at all. I read that on Wikipedia and I
Yeah.
was like, "Wait, that's Rey's story? That's really interesting.
Mhm.
Why wasn't that presented more?" Like
I don't know, 'cause,
like,
well,
I get it they didn't reveal it to the end, but honestly, there was so much going on, I'm like, "I don't even know what they revealed at the end." I just know that she was a Palpatine, I'm not sure how she was a Palpatine.
I heard that they were making things up as they went along after
Like,
Force Awakens, but anyway.
right? This is why Star Wars should be led by Star Wars fans,
Yeah,
which is what we have now. George has happily passed the torch to Filoni.
yeah,
Filoni is the ultimate Star Wars nerd, and that's
yes,
exactly who should be in charge.
exactly, good, and no
Yeah,
interference from anybody else. Just get it done.
exactly. Well, I know John Favreau can weigh in.
Yeah.
He's also holding it. He's holding it
Oh,
down.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
He can
Absolutely.
weigh in, but Dave Filoni's the creative director for a reason.
Yeah, 'cause I mean,
Oh,
because the first season of Mandalorian was the most Star Wars flavored, and it had Star Wars it was Star Wars flavor, but it had a little vodka in it.
but
There we go.
it's a little something something to shake it up. Oh my god, it was I mean, I love when I mean, Star Wars pulls from so many different influences
Mm,
from, like, Buddhist and Hindu religion
yeah.
to the occult to Japanese culture to Westerns. Oh my god, I love we just did the Cad Bane episode before this, and, like, the
Ooh.
Western influence is
Yes.
just so cool
Yes.
to look at because it's slapped all over the place.
Oh,
Especially with The Mandalorian and anything with, like, Cad Bane and just, like, the concept of the duel. The duel is, like, of course, across a lot of different cultures, but there's so many, like, Western standoff
yeah.
style and, like, dark versus light and, like, white hat versus
Yeah.
black hat, um,
I love
and it's
me
just
some
fantastic.
Cad Bane, man.
Ooh,
I like me some Cad Bane.
Cad Bane was that was a fun episode to do.
Yeah.
You should if you haven't listened to episode 8, you should go do
Mm.
that after
Oh,
we
okay.
finish. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a very fun episode. You can't talk about Force users all the time.
Right, right,
Gotta
absolutely.
talk about the other guys.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but as we move along
Mhm.
in Chewbacca's tale,
Yeah.
and we have all these great one-off stories, we would be remiss to mention his run-in with Miss Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, in the Clone Wars episode,
Mhm.
which was amazing. So, as seems to be so I'd have to remember what season it was. It's pretty early.
Mm.
I wanna say it was season 3 of Clone Wars, because she's still pretty young. She's still pretty young, like, she's wearing the burgundy outfit, and as
Mhm.
is tradition, she gets captured by a Trandoshan slaver,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Oh.
who just seemed like very efficient kidnappers as a whole. Um, Evidently, what I learned in the last episode is that Trandoshans, like being a lizard
Yeah.
species, apparently like eat their siblings when
Yeah.
they're younger, something like that. Like,
Mm.
so rough start. But it's not permission to go around taking people,
Yeah.
but they do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, yes,
The episode was called Wookie Hunt. I remember that. It was called Wookie
ah,
Hunt. It was the Clone Wars season 3, episode 22. And,
solid.
it was Ahsoka and, the youngling allies, they were trying to evade the Trandoshan hunters, and they get an unexpected help from Chewbacca. So,
Right?
yeah,
He just
exactly.
gets dropped in on a ship,
Mhm.
which they take down, which is an amazing win for Padawans everywhere when they take that ship down.
Yeah.
And just they're like, "Who was the prisoner who was on the ship? Did he get out? Where is he?"
Mhm.
And out walks Chewbacca.
Mhm.
It was a beautiful moment in Clone Wars. I was like, "Not Chewbacca, what?" Yes, throwing it back to the original trilogy.
Yes.
Um, and also he was around. That would have been so many I mean, that was a decent amount of years.
Mhm.
What year would that have been? We with the Anakin series, we were very particular
Yeah.
about, like, what year things happen, and it was very interesting to keep it in mind because 23 BBY
Yeah.
is when Anakin, like, falls to the dark side.
Right, right, right.
And so or is it 32? Oh, I'm mixing up my numbers. And so it's always interesting to think about, like, how many years it would have been.
Yeah.
Because also we see Ahsoka from the time that she's, like, what, 11, maybe 12?
Mhm.
Or it might be 14. She's definitely not older than 14 when she becomes Anakin's Padawan,
Right.
but she's still pretty young,
Yes.
very child soldier.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's just this great episode of, like, Ahsoka's Jedi cunning and
Mhm.
experience with, like, obviously Chewbacca's, like, almost 200 years old, and
Yeah.
he's captured with these little kids. He's probably like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
And, of course, he's super intelligent. He's trying to, like, build a transmitter from,
Mhm.
like, some scrap parts,
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
they're trying to make a plan. and so they can get a message to the other Wookiees on Kashyyyk to, like, come and save them. Um, and it's just this fantastic crossover episode, and
I'm sorry. I had a Star Wars Marvel crossover when you said that he was able to create a transmitter. I'm thinking about Jeff Bridges and Iron Man. Chewbacca built this in a cave with a box of scraps.
that's excellent. I can see it too. I can
Yeah,
see Chewbacca
absolutely.
built this in a cave.
Oh, man.
Oh my god. But also, I mean, it's so funny because
That was for your listeners, by the way. I hope they got a chuckle out of it. That was
right? That was excellent. That's excellent. Everyone laugh. Everyone laugh. Cue laughter now. That was excellent. I mean, but it's so funny that Iron Man building that suit out of a box of scraps is
yeah,
just as crazy as Chewbacca building this transmitter or him just having blaster parts in his mouth when
right.
he got captured.
He was just waiting for all the other Wookiees to just, like, chill out.
Chill out, guys. I got this handled.
And I bet he was relieved. I said, "Man, it's about time you guys got along. This how long was I gonna hold this in my mouth for?"
Right? I'm starting to get a toothache. It's starting to hurt my jaw.
Yeah.
Like, or I don't know, maybe, I mean, Wookiees are huge. Maybe they have some
Yeah.
sort of storage pocket in there, like
I'm
squirrels. I don't know.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I don't know what the situation is, but highly capable.
Mhm.
Highly capable.
Yeah.
So then, and then because obviously, like, this isn't too far off of, like, this is like the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars are happening when this happens. And so Chewie goes back, he escapes from the Trandoshan's with the Padawans and goes back to Kashyyyk
Mm,
and fights in the Battle of Kashyyyk.
mm,
As of course the Separatist army is just, just running over everybody, trying to take over all these planets, trying to do all their nonsense,
mhm.
which they don't know is part of the Grand Sith plan, but they don't know that. They're just
Right.
like Roger, Roger, and whatnot.
Yeah.
I Oh my gosh, I can never get over a droid voice. I'm just like, "Roger, Roger." It always delights me. I don't know why. And and so it's cool because this is actually something that we get a bit of in live action because
Yeah,
Yoda is on the planet of Kashyyyk,
yeah,
and we see him there, and Chewbacca's there, and they're fighting the droid army, the
yes.
Separatist army, and it's very cool. It's very cool. Like Chewbacca he's like a badass army general, like not just the little sidekick guy making the funny noises.
Yeah,
Like he's a boss, leads his people, handles business, you know, busts out the claws when needed because he's fighting for his family. He's fighting for his planet. Wookiees are very prideful people, and
mhm.
they're gonna be ready to go head to head when they need to.
I'm trying to remember who the other Wookiee was that was with Yoda at that time. I think I don't know, it began with a T.
Oh,
It was
Tarful.
Tarfo, yes.
Yes, Tarful is the other Wookiee that's there when they escape. Because basically, like, the Battle of Kashyyyk happens, and Yoda's still there on Kashyyyk, and Order 66 pops off.
Yes,
Like
yes.
while like, right after the battle, while they're
Mm,
there. And so, of course, like, the clone army's there, they shoot down Luminara Unduli, they shoot down a bunch of other Jedi who were there,
mm,
and Yoda's just like, "Yo, Chewbacca, let's bounce.
yeah.
Hop hop on my shoulder, little green man, let's go." Like a Kermit the Frog puppet that you're carrying away.
Yeah, he made
Uh,
and yeah, not until after he made short work of those those, uh, those troopers.
oh my god, I love that. I love anytime they have Yoda,
Yeah.
like, say it's so good.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I can always watch the scene of him and Palpatine fighting later
Right, right.
in the Senate. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
I mean, and at the time, like, that was just so cinematically grand. You were just like I can imagine seeing that in theaters and just being like,
The
"Whoa."
theater erupted. I'm gonna tell you, from the guy that actually saw all the films in the theater. I
Uh-huh.
remember it was an Attack of the Clones, and when Yoda walked out after Count Dooku, chopped off, made short work of Obi-Wan and Anakin, right?
Yeah.
When we saw that shadow of Yoda coming out, everybody in the theater was like, "Oh." And then when he pulled out the no, he didn't necessarily pull out the lightsaber. He used the force to pull it out of his pocket and just and
Right?
then lit it up. And then the moment he started yelling, "Ah!" Everybody in the theater went berserk watching Yoda fight for the first time. It it was insane. It was insane.
So
It
cool.
was like the roof of the theater blew off from the
Oh, I
excitement.
can't imagine. Oh, I wish I could have experienced that. Like, apparently they are they're putting the sequels or the prequels back in theaters for the anniversary that's coming up, and I'm definitely gonna go see them in theaters.
Would not mind it at all. I would
I would
not
because
mind.
I never got to see them in theaters. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, listen, that's the place where you see Star Wars is in a theater. This might be a little bit off topic, but I'm grateful that they released the director's cut of Alien in the theaters many, many years ago because I actually finally got to see Alien on a big screen and actually got that fear and that feeling and that craziness that I did not get a chance to see back in 1979 because I was too scared to go see it. Because never knew what the freaking alien looked like and everything, but I knew that there was
You
something in there.
you were scary.
And then later on, that fateful day when I went into Toys R Us and just started walking around and I turned around and saw stacks and stacks and stacks of alien action figures, I was petrified. Oh,
That's right. The
man.
things we're scared of when we're kids is hysterical. To this day, I can't watch Michael Jackson's Thriller,
Really?
the music video, only
Wow.
because, like only because, like, it's the yellow eyes at the end.
Oh, okay,
It
okay.
freaked me out as a kid, and because that I don't wanna watch it.
Hey, listen,
I'm a 32-year-old woman, and I still don't wanna watch
if Michael Jackson makes you scared, then he he
Right.
he he did he did something.
Right? Like, it's the ha, 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 and the eyes, and I'm also freaked out by the Blue Man Group. I don't
Oh,
like that
really?
they're so blue.
Really?
And it's the song like, the music video, "Blue dabba dee da boo died."
And then
It
you
was
think
so
about
blue. I don't know why it weirded me out when I was a kid. Still don't wanna watch it. I don't wanna watch the music
I
video.
I really hope and wish that somehow, some way, they are able to maybe, like, reopen a theater or do a theater where they can do it 4D and have the people experience the wonder that was Captain EO. They really need to do because that was the sci-fi musical short film that starred Michael Jackson, and it was I think it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and
Mm.
produced by George Lucas.
Why have I never heard of that? I'm gonna go watch that immediately. What's it called?
It's called Captain EO.
Captain
Captain E-O. Literally,
E
E and O.
Oh, 1986 film. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Bro, this is getting looked at immediately. Ah, it's Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson looking vaguely like Dave Bowie. I think that's the look he was going for with all the plastic surgeries. He's like, "If I gotta be white, I might as well look like Bowie."
Probably.
Probably. I
Pro
mean, not a bad face to model yourself after.
yeah.
Okay, I will be definitely finding this, like, somewhere. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
a delight. I look forward to that. And actually, what's cool is I don't know if you probably know this as a movie person,
Mm.
before we get back to it, that you can rent out a movie theater and have them play whatever you want.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, my aunt did that several years ago for might have been her 50th birthday, and she rented a theater and we watched Casablanca.
Wow.
And that was lovely. I was like, to see Casablanca on a big screen, I was like, "This is really cool. Okay, hi,
Hmm.
Humphrey Bogart, you big."
Alright.
Like, it was a lovely experience. I was like, "Okay, alright, old school big screen, I like it." And, it's cool that you can I didn't know you could do that at the time. I didn't know that,
Not
like, you could it made sense though, you can rent out a theater and they'll play whatever you want.
oh, really whatever I want.
I mean, I guess don't they're not gonna play porn, like,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess, but
No, 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 because
I
I'm
can't
staring
imagine there's too much of a limitation.
because I'm literally staring at a 4K remastered version of Michael Jackson's Captain EO, and, I mean, if oh my goodness, if that could be played in a theater, Lord have
Right,
mercy.
I don't know. I'd be curious to know what their capabilities are with, like, playing 4D in a movie theater.
Yeah, because that's what you have to
I'd
do.
be
Because when the thing is about Captain EO, it wasn't just it was a 3D film, but
yeah.
there were other elements that went on in the theater that were built specifically for the movie. In the opening scene, there was an asteroid that in flies in your face, and then it just stands there, it just sits there and starts rotating, and then you
Mm.
hear like a voiceover intro, and a green laser from the back of the room, from the back of the theater, actually fires at the asteroid on the screen, and it blows up in your face.
Oh,
Yeah, and when
very
and
interactive.
and then when the ship crash lands on the planet, right where it crash lands, there was like a little hole there, and some smoke would come out. And, it kinda gave you the thought and the feeling like but now remember, it was in 3D, so you're thinking like, "Oh, man, the thing looked like it crashed right in front of me."
That's crazy.
It's
Oh, that's
wild.
cool, and in '86 too?
Yep.
I mean, obviously, they had 3D films, but, like, I'm loving the early days of 4D theater.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I'm see, now I wanna go watch this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they could do it with the 4D effects for you, but I'm sure they'd play that if you rented that theater. No doubt. And I'm
That
sure
would
a
be
lot of the
cool.
kids working there have never heard of this film because I have never heard of this film. This is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's on the short list. It's definitely on the short list.
Wow. Sounds like a
Mm.
birthday present.
Right? Oh, so as they make their way into hiding,
Mhm.
well, Yoda makes his way into hiding.
Yes.
Chewbacca goes and gets captured by the Empire. Basically, the entire
Yeah.
planet of Kashyyyk gets captured by the Empire. They
Right.
get enslaved, and they're sent to work as miners in places such as Kessel, don't
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Um, and that, of course, leads Chewbacca down this very interesting path
Mhm.
to meet one Han Solo.
Yes.
Yes, and so there is so of course, like, as we talk about, like, Legends Chewbacca versus Canon Chewbacca,
Yeah.
we have two very different stories
Right.
about how he meets Han.
Right.
Not super different, but different points.
Mhm.
So, in in Legends, pretty much what happens is majority of, like, the planet of 'cause she gets captured,
Yes.
including they take a bunch of children
Right.
from a particular village, and Chewbacca goes after these children,
Yeah.
and, like, goes after them, like, on the ship, is able to, like, free them
Mhm.
by, like I don't know, it's a really cool maneuver where he, like, frees them, and then they hide among the wreckage, and so the Imperial officers who had taken them, like, didn't understand where they were,
Mhm.
and is able to like the children are able to escape,
Right.
and it's quite an impressive feat, but Chewbacca gets captured
Yeah.
in the process. And, of course, he's now, like, enslaved on this ship, and he's basically being, like, tortured by the Imperial officer who is running things,
Mhm.
and who gets sick of that nonsense except
Han Solo.
one Han Solo.
Yes.
He's not having it. He's not
Right.
having this big, strong guy, like, just being treated poorly. He's
Right.
definitely not up for the slave torture
Right.
'cause it's not his kink, not his thing.
Right.
And he turns on his lieutenant.
Mhm.
He turns on his lieutenant, and he and Chewie make their way out into the universe, and that is the
Right.
start of the truest love story we've ever known.
Love
At
it.
least
Love it.
according to Legends. There's
Right.
a lot of Legends differences.
Yeah.
Of course, in canon, it's a little similar. We spoke on it earlier, where Han is court-martialed
Yes.
for fucking up,
Yeah.
and court-martialed and basically put into, like, this mud pit
Yeah.
prison with they think he's being punished.
Yeah.
Like his superiors who are punishing him think he's being punished by being thrown into this pit with this animal.
Right.
Like throw him in with what they call Chewbacca, like the thing or the beast.
Yeah, the beast, yeah.
Yeah, throw him in with the beast. And so Han's like ready to go at it, and then he sees that the beast is a Wookiee.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I know enough Shriwook,"
Yeah,
which is
Shriwook.
that's the language of the Wookiees is Shriwook,
Shriwook, yes.
and he knows enough Shriwook to tell Chewie, who's like they're in this cage together, and there's some sort of like cage match they're supposed to do. He's like, "Hey, like, want to get out of here? Like, I have a plan to get us out of this cage."
Yeah.
And Chewie, being the extremely smart guy that he is like, "Hell yeah, that sounds like a plan."
Mm.
And in that way, the greatest love story ever known begins
Yep,
because they are able to escape out of that cage, steal the ship, which is not the Millennium Falcon at this time. They don't get
yep,
that till later.
yep,
They steal a ship and make their way out into the world. And of course, if you've seen Solo, you know the plot. Then
yeah.
they meet Kira and the Black Sun,
Mhm.
and chaos ensues. Um, Darth Maul is somewhere in there, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they left us hanging with that one.
Right? There is so much more they need to do with Maul.
Mm.
Like, they did a beautiful job with him in the animated content.
Yes.
Like, they gotta bring it back for
Mm.
the live action content because, like, Maul like, if you haven't seen the animated content, you people don't understand why Maul's my favorite character. And I'm like, "Oh, so you didn't watch Clone Wars and you didn't watch Rebels, so I can't talk to you." But then begins the adventures of Han, Solo, and Chewbacca, and the beginning of what I think is some of I mean, their friendship is beautiful, and that's nice, but then it's, like, all about Han.
Yep.
And Chewie is and something I realized about Chewie is because he is so wise, because he has so much perspective and has lived so much life and understand what's important, because one theme that's consistent between Legends and canon is the life debt.
Yes.
That is either way, Han saved Chewie's life, and Chewie, being the honorable Wookiee that he is, now owes Han Solo a life debt,
Yeah,
which is a pretty solid foundation for a friendship.
yeah.
I mean, maybe a little intense. I don't think I need all my friends to owe me a life debt and
Mhm.
vice versa. I hope we're not in that situation. I mean, it's kind of like, oh god, John Mulaney says in his last stand up where he like talks about his drug addiction,
Yes.
that like 10 people like save your life and do your intervention like it's great, but now you have 10 people that have saved your life,
Right.
and anytime you go out to dinner with them you got to pay
Yeah.
because it's like, well, you saved my life, I got this, man. And it's just it's rough.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the basis of it,
Right.
is now he owes him forever,
Yeah.
and in the span of a Wookiee's life, because this is something that was touched on again in the Chewbacca series from the early 2000s,
Yes.
is Mala, his wife Malatabuk,
Mhm.
who's a lovely lady. We see her pop up in the holiday special and in the comics,
Yay.
and he and Han, like, talk about her from time to time.
Yeah.
Because Wookiees' lives are so long, like, she says it in the comics, she's like, "He goes away, and I miss him when he's away, but I know that he's thinking of us,
Yeah.
and he always comes home."
Right. Right.
Like, he always comes home, and I'll make sure that he goes home. Like, they go and visit the planet, and they stay for a while,
Yeah.
and that's really beautiful, and so it's fine that he's away, like, he has the time. He also knows that, like, Han is just a guy, like, he's not gonna live forever, like, he's 190, he's
Right.
middle-aged
Right.
when he meets Han, like, he knows he has time to ride it out with this human and repay the debt.
Yeah, because being
Um,
because with Wookiees, I mean, 100 years might as well be a day, you know?
right? Or
Yeah.
at least, like or I mean, I guess, like, that's early age,
Yeah.
like, imagine, like, that's, like, to 25,
Right.
that's a quarter.
Yeah.
Like, if you live 100 years, that's a quarter.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mhm.
and so it's not so bad, so they start their grand adventures. Of course, they go on to very soon meet Mr. Lando Calrissian,
Yeah.
and him and Chewie just do not get along because Lando is a shiesty guy, and Chewie's just not here for it. Like,
Right.
I think Han is also a shiesty guy in a lot of ways, but I
Yeah.
think he has a little bit more honor
Mhm.
than Lando does.
Yeah.
Lando's just like, "I'm self-centered. This
Mm.
is what we're gonna do." I don't mind screwing you over to get what I need to do, and it's not that we don't see Han do that. Maybe he just does it with a little bit more class. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Let's just come out and say it. Lando was the scoundrel.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, even Lando's account of Chewie in the comics is like, the story he tells is they go on a mission together. Chewie's clearly not happy to be on a mission with Lando,
Mm.
and I don't remember if it's when it might have been, like, at the time period when Han was frozen in space. What was he frozen in? The
I was
stuff.
Carbonite.
Thank you, carbonate.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a more simple word than what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So he throws in the carbonite, and that period is quite long in the comics. I feel like they kinda smooth it over
Mm.
in the films,
Yeah.
but in the comics, he's, like, gone for a while.
Right.
Like, they're very worried. They go through, like, great lengths to get him back, but he's, like, frozen in that carbonite for a minute.
Yeah.
And so they go on this mission, and, like, the planet that they land on, the Imperial officer that they encounter is just kind of a big weirdo and just, like, wants, like, people to duel and, like, fight. So he's like, "Oh, unless you, like, have your Wookiee fight my, like, big droid monster, like,
Mm.
you're not allowed to leave or we're gonna, like, take you or something."
Mm.
And Lando's like, "Okay, that sounds like a deal. He'll fight this guy." And Chewie's like, "What?" Like, I didn't agree to that. Just looks at him like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, and so then Chewie has to fight this giant droid thing, and he's like, "What the fuck? This sucks." Obviously defeats him because
Right,
Chewie's,
right,
like, smarter than a droid.
right.
Defeats him, and then basically, like, the follow-up has to be, like, then Lando has to fight that Imperial officer, and
Mm.
that's, like, Chewie's revenge.
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Yeah, you go handle the situation. I'm not here to be, like, your muscle, you
Yeah.
asshole."
Yeah.
And, they just have a contemptuous relationship, and even in the comic, he says, like, "I don't know if me and Chewie were friends. I'm not sure if you would see it that way." He's like, "He just kinda stuck with me."
Yeah.
Right, I think, like, everyone else liked Lando except Chewie.
Yeah.
He was just like, "I don't know why you keep this guy around."
Yeah, that's the reason why Chewbacca had no problem choking the life out of him. So
Right? Right? Well, I mean, I also think that, like, being that his loyalty was to Han, like, that was
Yeah,
his best friend, that
right.
when Lando sold him up the river
Mhm.
and to Jabba and got him frozen in that carbonite, like, that was Lando's fault.
Right,
That
right.
Chewbacca's like, "Okay, like, bet I don't
Mm.
fuck with you anymore.
Right, right.
Don't trust you anymore, like, forget this." And that's pretty in line, like, it's the Wookiee way, they're a loyal people, they're an honor-based people.
Yes, yeah,
Like, that would've never been allowed to rock in an honor-based society.
exactly.
Like, just the insult of it all. Speaking of honor-based societies, I wanted to touch on this because I mean, there's also a big influence in Star Wars is Japanese culture.
Yes.
Definitely with, like, the samurai code and even with the garments, like, obviously, like, Padme, Queen Amidala is, like, a very direct reference, but even things with the Jedi clothing, like, you have Greek influence, but
Mm.
you have, like, Japanese influence and
Definitely samurai influence right there.
right?
Yeah,
Absolutely, and even in this kind of code of the Wookiees, this very honorable
yeah,
code,
yeah,
like, that they follow, I mean, it's very noble and it's very old, like an old way. Not in a bad way, of course,
yeah,
but just a very old school way of like, no, like you're not gonna insult my pride and like you're certainly not gonna insult my family and our
yeah,
honor.
yeah, yeah.
And that's super interesting. I've been watching that new Hulu show, Shogun. which is, like, set in, like, feudal Japan, and it's pretty good.
I
It's pretty
gotta
good. It had
I
a
gotta
lot
get
of
caught up. I gotta get caught up with that 'cause I've heard
right?
nothing but good things about it.
It's very beautiful, and the story's good, and apparently it's based on a book that's
Mhm.
also very good, and they're doing
Yeah,
the whole book over, like, the course of the series,
yep,
and it was played up a lot
right,
at New York Comic Con
right,
not New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con.
mm,
There was, like, a huge installation for it and this, like, samurai battle performance thing that they did. It was, like, a whole big setup thing because
right,
Hulu money, and it's been a pretty good show, and something that stood out to me, which is, like, a bit of a spoiler for Shogun,
right,
was, like, honor is at the base of everything, which is, like, something that's very well known in Japanese culture, and in this one part at the beginning, there is a samurai, like a
mm,
samurai guard who insults a lord during a
mm,
meeting,
mm,
and, like, basically defending his lord. Like, this lord was there's a lot of, like, snippiness and a lot of passive aggressive comments in this show,
right.
just among all these feuding lords and all these people. And this one guy stands up and he's just like, "How dare you say that about my lord? Like how what an insult. Like we should pop off right now," or something. That's the ad lib version. And of course the lord is just like very calmly is like, "How like dare you even insinuate that so and so insulted me?" Like even though he did, like,
Yeah,
but indirectly. And but of course then the guy has to apologize and like basically the the only way to apologize is seppuku, and you have to kill yourself.
yeah, yeah,
So this guy basically says, like, "I'm so sorry, like, in retribution, like, I will end myself and I will end my line."
yeah, I remember that.
And so it's really sad because this guy then goes back to their, like, fiefdom
Mm,
or where it goes back to where they live
mm,
and tells his wife that, like, "Hey, I need to, like, kill myself and our infant child." Because, like, they had a boy and, like, he said, "I promised on my honor that I would commit seppuku and I would end my line, so I'm gonna die and our baby son's gonna die."
mm,
And she's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And it's very sad, and she's a very, like, sad character in that way because 'cause you're
yeah.
just like, "Damn, she got the short end of the honor stick.
Mm,
That sucks." Like, how are you married with an infant and now for some basis of some asshole's honor,
yeah,
you like, now I'm a widow and a bereaved mother? Like, this is some bullshit. Like, every time I see her character, I'm just like, "That's some bullshit."
yeah.
Every time, I'm just like, if I was her, I'd be outraged. I would
Yeah,
rampage on everyone. Mm. But it's so interesting, like, seeing that play out, and obviously, it's a very dramatized way,
yeah,
but it's I don't know, that's what Wookiee culture makes me think of, like, the honor and like, the people on the like, the Wookiees on the Trandoshan ship who wouldn't let, like, the honor of their family stand like, get trumped down by the need to escape.
right, right,
Or even, like, when Chewbacca kills that other albino Wookiee who challenges him, and the family just, like, can't let it go. For years and years, they curse Chewbacca. Though, I did say I'd get back to that,
yeah,
the children that he freed from that ship when he got captured
yeah,
in the Legends content, those were the children from the village of that family.
mm,
And so, actually, one of the stories so that story actually gets told from the father of the albino Wookiee.
mm,
And he says, like, "I can't hate Chewbacca, like, he saved our village, he saved our line, like, yes, like, I'll always be angry at him for, like, for killing my son, but, I will always pay tribute to him, and I paid tribute to him in the biggest way." And then it like, pans out, and the next, like, frame image is, like, of their I guess, their tree, their home tree,
yes.
and it's, like, carved in the face of Chewbacca.
Wow.
And he's like, "This is, like, how I pay homage to him." And I'm just like, "Well, damn, isn't that full circle?" Mm. Honor I honor is a funny, funny mistress.
Yes, it is.
So then, of course, you have just, the adventures of Han Solo and Chewbacca, which
Yeah,
play out in like, a bit in films. Obviously, we get the big bullet points in the films. but you have the famous Kessel Run, of course,
Yes, yes.
um, and which we do get to see in Solo,
Yeah,
um,
and
and
and the crazy thing was, I think a lot of people was surprised that, we hear about the legend Han Solo making the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. We all thought that parsecs was a unit of time. It was actually a unit of distance.
mhm,
Yeah, and I was very surprised about that.
yeah, I think yeah, I remember when I learned that, and I was like, "Oh, like, you the parsecs you have to jump through, that makes sense."
Yeah,
I mean, that's the fun thing about Star Wars, there's always something to learn,
yeah,
always something to learn that you didn't know, and just the amount of detail, just the
right,
absolute amount of detail is insane,
right.
mostly because it's all made up,
Yeah.
but, like, to make up that amount of detail is incredible,
Mm,
like, down to the littlest thing. And and then it's adventure stories.
yes,
It's like you have a few comics. I mean, the stories differ so much.
right.
Obviously in Legends you then have him like with Han Solo and Leia and actually no, we haven't even gotten to Leia. So we have the adventures of Han Solo and Chewbacca
Mhm.
pre-rebellion.
Yes.
Yeah, and even in even in the comics, it's a lot of I mean, it's a like, it's some drug running and it's some s and smuggling mostly.
Mhm.
Um, like, I think about, like, the different comic book stories that I've read. It's adventure one-offs.
Right, right.
I know at one point they go back to where is Han from? They go back to his home planet
Corellia,
and
yeah,
yes, yeah, Corellia. Yeah, and they end up, like, meeting Han's dad, and that's, like, a whole thing. And, yeah, just these, like, interesting kind of like, some character building, some
yeah,
not.
yeah,
There's a few one-off stories in the comics that I think are post-rebellion,
right.
like, post A New Hope,
Mm,
where Chewie, like, goes off on him like, on his own for a few missions.
right,
And those are interesting, especially seeing him interact with people just, like, obviously not non-verbally, but people don't speak Free.
right.
So they're just like, "I don't know what you're saying, but thank you for helping me." Mm. And then, of course, all the issues start when they drop Jabba's cargo.
Yes, that definitely became a problem.
Yes, and that was and it's a very main problem. I feel like that's I mean, kind of like time travel rules. That's like a
Mhm.
fixed event, and that is a fixed event because that puts a lot of things into motion.
Right.
So, of course, they're doing a smuggling some Imperial cargo for Jabba the Hutt, and they get stopped. They chased by some TIE fighters,
Mhm.
and they have to either drop the cargo or surrender and get captured by the Empire. So they're like,
Yeah,
"Fuck
exactly,
either way."
exactly.
Um, and they drop the cargo.
Mm,
Han drops it, and it gets destroyed along with the TIE fighters,
right.
but like they just lost the money.
Yeah,
They just lost the stuff.
yeah.
Like, you don't go back to the drug dealer and say, "Oops, I dropped the cocaine, sorry."
Mhm. And
And
a certain Hut was not very happy about that.
no. No, Jabba was definitely not happy. I mean, Jabba's never happy about anything, but,
Yeah.
um, and and it was like and there's a whole, like, interesting story what happens, like, in the course of that 'cause there is, like, a specific story, and it happens in the comic books, like, you get the actual, like, events of the Kessel Run.
Yeah,
Oh, no, the actual events of them sorry, not the Kessel Run. The actual events of them, like, dropping Jabba's cargo and the
mhm,
aftermath of that, and
yeah,
basically kinda how they're on the run because they know, like, "Oh, we can't go back to Tatooine." Like, we don't have an like, at least at this point, like, we don't have an explanation,
mm,
and they go on this whole, like, roundabout adventure like finding several barrels of rhydonium and freeing some prisoners and just doing like the like pseudo heroic things that
yeah,
Han and Chewie just kind of find themselves in
right.
because heroes will always find hero work whether they like it or not.
Right, right, right.
And then if we fast forward to what I think is a very important turning point in their relationship is then their involvement with the rebellion.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that changes a lot for them
Mhm.
in a significant way, like, obviously, it changes Han in a very significant way, but this isn't Han's episode.
Right.
And I think for Chewie, what was really beautiful is that I mean, because at this point, like, a lot of his people are still enslaved and, like, they're actually, no, I don't know if they're still enslaved at this point by the time he starts up with the rebellion. I would have to see that when they free the the people of Kashyyyk and actually return them to their planet.
Right.
But so, of course, they're in the famous cantina on Tatooine
Yeah.
thinking, like, "We gotta keep hiding from Jabba
Yep.
because
Yep.
there's probably a bounty on our head," and they run into a certain Obi-Wan Kenobi and
Yes.
young Luke
That's
Skywalker
right.
with some funny droids, and they all go on a trip, and where do they go? Um, they go to free a certain princess who's all in
Mhm.
distress and shit.
Uh And then they
Who
rescue the princess, and then they make it back to Yavin and come to find out that, oh, there was a tracking device that was left on the Millennium Falcon because it was too easy for them to escape. They're definitely tracking them down. And then Han was like, no, not this ship, sister. He said, listen, I'm not in this for you. I'm not in this for your rebellion. I expect to be well paid. I'm in this for the money. And then Leia was like, said, you needn't worry about your reward. If money is all that you love, then that's what you'll receive. And when, Luke was trying to convince Han, like, listen, you see what's going on here. You listen, the Empire is ruling the galaxy with an iron hand. They need to be taken out. They need to be taken down. They got this Death Star. We could really, really use your help. And and Chewie isn't stupid. He knows this, but he also knows he has a life debt. He's like, look. So I would think like the mentality of Chewie would be like this, like, listen, I got a life debt to you, Han, but you know what? If you join up with the rebels, I ain't gonna be mad at you.
right? Right? That's a perfect, like, diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's really reverse psychology of
Right.
just like, "Yeah, they're messy, but I mean, if you wanna do it, I'll do it." Like
Yeah, yeah, because listen, we all know Chewie still has a bone to pick with the Empire, but it was like, but like, look, well, listen, I do have a life debt to you. If you ain't down, fine, I won't be down either. But if you just happen to want to, you know, give the Empire a hard time, I ain't mad at you. Let's
Right?
go.
Right? Oh my god, Chewbacca would have signed up for the rebellion in a second. He, like, didn't
Exactly.
really wanna be a smuggler with Han. He's like,
Right.
"What are we doing?
Right.
Why are we stealing all this stuff and doing this illegal shit?"
Mhm.
Probably when the rebellion came along, he was like, "Hell yeah.
Yep.
This is totally what we should do."
Yeah.
Probably so excited and happy, and he was all like, "Meh."
Yep. Mhm.
And of course, that leads us through the main content film story that we all know very well, and, like, the progress of the movie. So, they freed the princess, they get awarded, which Chewie did not get a medal at that
Uh-huh.
ceremony,
That's right, that's right.
right? Just totally gypped, but you know what? He's old, and he's wise, and he's like,
Mhm.
"You know what? I don't need the accolades. That's fine. I know where my pride is. I have my priorities in order. I don't need my participation trophy."
Yeah, because, let's see, Chewie actually did eventually get, a medal, but it wasn't well, I mean, prior to what, with what happened with, being given Solo's Medal of Bravery. There was, I think there was an MTV award show or something like that, and Carrie Fisher, there was an award for, I don't know, like honorable, most honored. There was some kind of like a an honor award. It was the MTV Movie Awards, and there was I forget what's the name of the award that they get? It's almost like a lifetime achievement award or something like that. Oh,
Mm,
and it was given to Chewbacca on the MTV Movie Awards by Carrie Fisher herself.
I know that
Yeah.
there's, like the Michael Jackson Lifetime Achievement Award or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. And they gave it to Chewbacca?
I think so. Hold on a second. I said, okay,
Wait, Chewbacca MTV Movie Awards. Lifetime Achievement Chewbacca gets Lifetime Achievement Award, and, like, Peter Mayhew comes out dressed as Chewbacca.
yeah.
I'm trying they have, like, a lot of videos. I'm trying to, like, not play a video while we're doing this. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, Lifetime Achievement Award on the 1997
Yeah, hold on.
MTV Movie Awards, and he gets presented with his medal
That's beautiful.
from Princess Leia herself, the late great Carrie Fisher.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, well deserved. Well,
Oh, yeah.
he was a hero
Yeah.
and really, like, the emotional and mental conscious of the group. Like, even at this time, like, not having so much verbal
Mhm.
from Chewbacca, you can still tell, like, he's, like, the calm, collected one, like, he's really, like, the wisdom
Yeah,
of the group,
exactly.
which I think gets relate a lot to Obi-Wan, but,
Right,
I mean, Chewbacca's way older than Obi-Wan.
right. And Wookiees were also firm followers of the light side of the Force,
Yep.
and they believed that the Force was connected to all definitely connected to all living beings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, just their connection with nature alone
yeah,
says that.
yep,
Like, they would have been definitely one of those I mean, there's, like, a few, like, Wookiee Jedi, there's not a whole lot of them, but they would have been one of those cultures that would have been grounded in the Force either way.
right.
I wonder if Wookiees can be Jedi mind tricked.
Hmm,
They might be too mentally strong for it.
I think that's
I
what
wouldn't
they're
be
strong for.
surprised. I would not be surprised if you couldn't trick a Wookiee. Interesting.
No, 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 a lot of these Wookiees have been around the block, like around the galaxy, quite probably like a million times, or around the block a million times, and
Right?
they're not done. They are mentally strong.
Right? And just, like, as a people,
Yep.
I feel like you get raised to be so strong and so focused and so grounded.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the thing, people who are really mentally grounded
right.
tend to be cultures who aren't able to be mind mind forced.
Mindful
I don't know why I'm
mind tricked, yeah.
yeah, I don't know why I'm forgetting the phrase. That happens a lot in real time. I'm just like, "I what word am I trying to say?" And I'm sure a fanboy will drag me for it one day, but today's not that day. But I think that's the best part about Chewbacca is and really just any Star Wars character that I think doesn't get the main character energy that they deserve,
Mm,
that there's so much to mine from them, even in, like, their small interactions, and I think it's so wonderful that Chewie's character has been so fleshed out in other mediums
mm,
besides the films,
right,
because he's such a rich character, and there's so much to learn just from just the concept of wisdom and the concept of slowing down and taking your time.
right,
And I think that's so beautiful, and the sense of family and community that he embodies.
yes.
It's I mean, I feel like it's all such on the back burner, but it's so but they're the building blocks of who he is. When you really, like, sit there and peel back the layers like we have,
Mhm,
and it's really beautiful, and there's so much to learn from that.
right. And speaking of Jedi mind tricks, if anybody's interested, if anybody's, into this sort of thing, how to make a Jedi mind trick cocktail.
Brought to you by
Yeah.
Mind the Fourth.
You get your Kettle One botanical grapefruit and rose vodka, John D. Taylor's Velvet Falernum, blue Curaçao, white grape juice, lime juice, and grapefruit bitters. Don't ask me how much you put in each, but you put it all together, and it's supposed to taste like the Jedi mind trick drink that you get at Oga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge.
Oh my. Oh, is that you can get that at Galaxy's Edge?
Yeah. Oh,
That's fun.
don't think that I didn't try to do the blue milk, and I failed miserably because there's so many. Because you know, I mean, I'm the type of guy that's like, okay, you see something someplace, all you got to do is just find out. I've always been big on like when I went to the restaurants when I was a kid, and I would see, try all the different foods and stuff like that. And I was like, Mom, I want to try this at home, and I would, probably the first meal that I made was nachos because we used to go to this restaurant called Chi Chi's. It's no longer there anymore, and I ordered nachos. I said, I could make this. And I actually tried making nachos and I did pretty good with it. So I'm a big on creating stuff from restaurants, from locations, from bars, and actually trying to repeat it and try to see if I can make it myself. Now, I went online and I found about like 5 or 6 different types of recipes on how to make blue milk, but each one was wrong and tasted terrible. So
I feel like how hard can it be? Wouldn't it be make like kind of a watery milkshake and use a little blue food coloring?
yeah, that's the only part I got right was the blue food coloring.
Like, I feel like you make a vanilla milkshake, like, put probably a little
Yeah,
like, extra milk, it's a little, like, watery,
it would ta
add
it would taste
enough
better.
blue food coloring,
Yeah, it would taste better.
and that's it. What kind of stuff were they trying to have you do?
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to remember what it was. I know that the basis was it was a vegan drink. It was
Mhm.
the basis.
Oh,
The basis is was actually rice milk. It's made with it's
okay.
made with rice milk, and I'm trying to remember. It was a blend of coconut and rice milk, and there was like all different kinds of like a fruity, all kinds of fruits. Trying to remember what kind of fruit it was. Let's see.
That would compliment blue.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, like, blackberries maybe, or blueberries?
Okay, let me see. Yeah,
I don't
and
know. Right, how
here again is another like one of the 100 different types of recipes on how to make it.
I mean, you just need to get a bantha, obviously, and you just
A
milk it. Come on, just
absolutely, there you go. That's how
don't reinvent the wheel.
that's how you do it. That's how you
If
do
if we can grow dinosaurs, we can grow a bantha. Come on.
it.
Modern science is a marvel.
Okay. Coconut milk, bananas, maple syrup, cinnamon, food coloring, and ice? Really?
I mean, that doesn't sound bad.
Yeah, it doesn't sound bad at all.
Huh. I mean, you could even, like, use something besides maple syrup, like
Mm,
a date to sweeten it.
yeah. That
Yeah, like, I would use something more natural than maple syrup.
yeah, 'cause that I guess that's how to make the frosty version when we add the ice.
Ooh, frosty. It's always a good time for a frosty.
Oh, yeah. Uh, alright, well, speaking of which, yeah, stomach is growling.
Yes, yes, we are going to wrap it up, and I think we should talk about
Yes.
the differences between kind of where we have left Chewie in Legends with his death,
Mhm.
and then in him how he dealt with Han's death
Yeah.
in at the end of the of episode 9.
Right, right,
No,
right.
no, sorry. It was episode 7 that Han died,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, yeah, he died in the first one, which was a really strange character to kill off in the first part of the sequels, but, here nor there. So with his death, which is very fascinating because he dies saving one of Han and Leia's 3 children. So in Legends content, if you fine folks do not know, they have 3 children, one of which is named I believe it was Anakin that he saved, if I wanna take a stab at that.
Mhm.
So him and Han travel to this moon. They travel to this moon, and there's inhabitants on the moon, and the moon is, like, No, it's a planet and the moon is going to crash into it. Like, there's like, obviously, the Empire has come and just, like, completely mined out this planet as they're wont to do, which is a great environmental message,
Yeah,
and, like, against the Empire. Like, they just, like, mine it for all its resources, and it's completely fucked the atmosphere. It's completely,
right.
messed up the planet, and the moon is crashing into the planet.
Yes,
Like, the moon is gonna crash and take out the planet, and so they're trying to get all these villagers, all these people, inhabitants, onto the Millennium Falcon.
right.
Like, they're, like, rushing, everyone's trying to evacuate, and everyone's helping, and little
Mm,
Annie always causing some kinda trouble, getting in
right,
some shit,
right.
sees a young child and, like, goes to try and, like, save it, like, grabs the young child, and Chewie sees this and runs after them and, like, runs back to the ship and literally throws Anakin onto the ship. But
Right.
because of that force, he's not able to then, because the ship's taking off, because like, the ground below it is crumbling,
Yeah,
Han has to raise the ship. Chewie throws Anakin and is not able to get onto the ship himself, and
right.
it's not until it's too late that Han realizes that Chewie is not on the ship, and,
Yeah,
like, the people have to, like, hold him back as he is ready to fling himself off the ship to go get Chewie. He's like, "I'm not leaving Chewbacca behind. What do you mean he's not on the ship?"
mm,
So he's freaking out. He's
yeah,
freaking out. He's throwing a fit. He's crying. And Chewie is just like on the planet, like not able to do anything, and lets out this one final beautiful roar
right.
as the moon crashes into him and kills him.
Mm,
And this is what people
mm,
get in the novel, and I have not had the pleasure of reading this novel, but
yeah,
I can imagine that, like, there were tears, jaws were on the
yeah,
floor, kind of like when they took off Ned's head in Game of Thrones, where you're just like, "They're not gonna kill this guy. No way they kill this guy.
right.
It's gonna change at the last second," and then it doesn't. And then it does not. It's like, "Oh, nope, they killed that guy. They killed him big."
Yeah,
And that is how Chewbacca goes out, and we talked a lot about the comic series that came out afterwards that really paid tribute to him and his life, where we, like, got to learn more about his chronological canon,
right.
and which I thought was really beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that content, and it's so interesting. I mean, even that the sacrifice
yes,
in the end, like, it's so in line with who he was,
yeah, yeah. He was very, very dedicated. I mean, honor to the core as a Wookiee is.
right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the flip side
Mm,
of in episode 7 when Han makes the very bad mistake of thinking that he has, broken his son's connection to the dark side with the
mhm.
2-minute conversation,
Yeah,
um,
right.
and gets run through
Yeah.
by Kylo Ren, which is very sad scene, but, poor writing.
Mhm.
And of course, now he watches his friend get murdered by a child that he loved and, like, helped raise as Uncle Chewie, and again, like, earth-shattering, tear-inducing roar.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine that, like, watching your best friend just get murdered, the kind of trauma that would cause.
I think I was more or less just shocked that they did that in the film. I mean, I'm looking and I'm watching Han approach his son, and I'm like, "No." I'm feeling this is not gonna end well. This
Especially on the, like, Abyss bridge. I'm like,
Yeah.
nothing good happens on these bridges.
So, and then that yeah, exactly, that tear-inducing roar. And, like, we were just all I mean, it was I think maybe I was more or less angry that Han was killed. I guess maybe I don't know if it was
Yeah.
it was a mix between being a fan and being a person that, literally lived with these characters since 7 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
grew up with these characters, and then it was literally having an old friend getting murdered, like, right in front of me, and I'm like, "Really? You guys actually would really wrote this? Yo,
Right.
JJ, we gotta talk, man."
Right, we got no one. no one gave you permission to kill anyone off, like, let's be let's be clear.
However
Oh,
Harrison Ford has been looking to kill Han Solo for a long time, so
also true. Right? Maybe it was Harrison's idea.
I think it was
Um,
Harrison's idea.
right, it's like, "Listen, guys, JJ doesn't know this is happening, but, like, this is what the rewrite is gonna be."
But
Um,
the ball was dropped at the, end of the film, which was like a just a little indicator, a little, a little sign that these guys who are in charge of Star Wars right now don't know what they're doing, because how are you gonna have Chewbacca just walk in the background and not console Leia, or look for Leia to
right?
console
That
him?
that was a missed moment. It was
Very
a
missed.
100% a missed moment, and we are never here to shit on Star Wars. We love Star Wars,
Yeah,
but we definitely will point out that would have been the beautiful moment
yeah,
for them to come together, especially because of, like, old content of, like, Leia and Chewie's relationship.
right.
Like, that we discussed earlier, that, like, Han was this binding force, he was this loving father, he was this best friend,
Mhm.
and, like, to Leia, like, that was the love of her life, like, even if their relationship always wasn't what they wanted it to be,
Right.
and at that point, and I'm not even sure, like, what the time frame is on this, like, about how long he'd been away, because obviously Ben Solo falling to the dark side, like, put a wedge in their marriage, and Han went back to smuggling.
Right.
So, they were essentially, like, space divorced.
Yeah.
And so they were separated, and they were gonna get back together, they were getting a little cozy, we all saw that.
Yeah, yeah,
And and then he's gone.
yeah.
And the amount of and I look forward to this in a Leia episode one day. Well, actually, no, a Leia trilogy, because it's a
Yes.
lot of content to cover.
Right, right.
That yeah, no, just that grief that they would have felt together, and that world rocking that would have happened for them, like, what do you mean Han's gone? Like, even more so, like, Leia, I feel like she had her army and the rebellion and her cause, like, she could kind of hunker down into work and, like, make it happen, but Chewbacca lost his world.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, that was his best friend, that was his life debt. Like, he had devoted, at that point, decades of his life to standing by Han's side,
right.
and in a lot of ways, I'm sure he's angry he wasn't able to protect him.
Mhm.
Like, why couldn't I have been there to stop that? Like, I'm this big, strong guy, I'm this warrior, I have all this experience, but I couldn't stop my best friend from dying. Like, I
Yeah,
couldn't control that, I couldn't fix that.
yeah. That was
And that must be so frustrating.
Has to be.
You ever feel that way? Like, you just have something that's so out of your control, but something you feel should be in your control because we just don't know how to, like, face the reality of that?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, like, I have loved ones and, family members that are, getting older, and, they're succumbing to those kinds of conditions that come with age.
Mhm,
One of them, which is, you have short-term memory loss, different kinds of, illnesses and sicknesses, diabetes and things like that. And it's like you don't want to be the nagging person, but you at the same time, it's like, hey, look, dad, mom, auntie, brother, you're you really shouldn't be eating this. You really shouldn't be, doing this or that. And they are going to do what they're going to do. And you
yeah.
feel kind of like powerless to help. You know that you want to help, you know the right thing to tell them, you know what they ought to do, but it's whether or not they're actually going to do it. And yeah, you feel very, very powerless to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very because you can only control yourself
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Like, you can't control anyone else's actions. People are always gonna do what they wanna do.
Right.
And because you've learned something, because you've learned something better. a
Right.
better way to live, whether it's through your actions or what you eat or exercise or I don't know, however you wanna live your life,
Yeah.
like, however you find a better way to live, for which there are many,
Yeah.
many better ways to live your life,
Mhm.
and those things that come along with old age, those are things we have to combat now.
Yes.
Like, the choices we make now are what happens down the road,
Right.
and it can be so frustrating.
Can. Yeah.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink,
Yes, amen.
and I'm sure that that's a very that's, like, a very good common thing when, you're looking from the outside in,
Mm.
and you're able to see it so clearly.
Yeah.
Like, you're able to see it so clearly, I'm sure in that moment that Chewie would have been thinking, "Don't approach your son, like, that's not your son."
Right.
Like, if something of my Wookiee wisdom has taught me anything in at this point, what is he, like, 230?
Yeah.
Like, how old is he? Like, 230, 240 years old. It's like, if anything has taught me, especially all these decades fighting up against Darth Vader and the rebellion and, like, all this bullshit that I've learned that the dark side is a bitch.
Yeah.
And your son is in the throes of the dark side. There's nothing good that's coming of it right now. Like, this isn't the moment.
Right.
But Han was gonna do what he was gonna do, and Chewie couldn't stop him, and the powerlessness in that moment must have been palpable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Star Wars. Gosh. These are things that keep me up at night, HB. These are the things. This is the stuff. This is the stuff. It's yeah, no, it's I mean, it's the emotional roller coaster.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Like I can't get all I can't not get choked up whenever I think about things like this, or
Mm.
I think about, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and, like, how they just got, like, ripped apart
Right.
and, like,
Right.
sometimes I get, like, overwhelmed. I'm just like, "I need to take a minute
Yeah.
and, like, do something else."
I mean, and after watching Ahsoka, especially that scene where she confronts, Anakin in that world between worlds there, I can look at the ending of Revenge of the Sith so much more emotional, you know? And with the, and I don't care what anybody says, I enjoyed the Obi-Wan series. I enjoyed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, that has my favorite scene in Star Wars ever, and you know the scene. You know exactly what scene I'm talking about. In their battle when I mean, it's the line like, this is my turn to do a line now,
Okay.
of which I know all the words. Like when, Obi-Wan says, like, "I'm sorry, Anakin,
Yeah.
for all of it."
Yep.
And he goes, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did."
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I sometimes just watch that scene randomly throughout the day for,
Yeah.
like, it's and giggles
Yeah.
because it's everything.
Yeah, it
It's everything about Star Wars in that moment, like, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did."
it
And that's why split personality disorder will get heavily discussed in the Vader
yeah,
episodes, because is it a different person? Is it the same person? Is he inside? Is he dead? Who
yeah.
knows? It's crazy.
And did he and is that a a way of saying that he hated himself?
Right? Like, it's born of the hate.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's also I mean, even we spoke to the powerlessness,
Right.
and a thing about Anakin is he felt powerless to save the people that he loved.
Right.
He felt powerless to save his mom.
Mhm.
He was feeling powerless to save Padme, and so what he thought he could get from the Emperor once he, like, thought or no, didn't even realize, thought he had the power that you could, like, live forever, save the ones you love from dying, which of course was a lie. He was working on it, but he hadn't figured it out.
Yeah.
Um Like, that was the power that he wanted because he felt powerless against death.
Yes.
And that was what he wanted more than anything, and
And
he
that
threw everything away for that.
and that was the promise that never came to fruition,
Yep.
of, the power to keep people from dying, which was the one thing that he wanted so much, and it never happened.
Yeah. And I mean, really, in theory, that's the entire point of Star Wars,
Yeah.
is this overwhelming goal, which is, like, a big part of the retcon now, is the like, because Plagueis wanted to, like, preserve his body forever, and that was failed, so his apprentice then went on to be like, "Okay, I can't preserve my body forever, but how do I preserve my essence within the Force? And how do I pass that on to a different, like, physical body?"
Yeah.
And that's what the cloning storyline is. Essentially just one asshole trying to live forever. And
Yeah.
and that's Star Wars, people, period.
Yeah.
Story done, and that is the point of Star Wars. It's one asshole trying to live forever, and he
Right.
throws the galaxy into chaos to do so. And I guess he doesn't well, actually, we don't know if he succeeds, because who knows? Because somehow Palpatine may return. Like,
Right,
every
of
time.
course.
Somehow, that determined, wrinkly little man. You can always depend on Palpatine coming back, because that's
Yeah.
the point of Star like, you think Anakin's the star of Star Wars? Fuck that, it's Palpatine.
Yeah,
He's the one there from the start,
exactly.
right? There would be no Anakin without Palpatine. Um, but that charming final note, do we got anything else on our buddy Chewie you wanna say before we say goodbye, HB?
I would say that, Chewie can, as I said, Chewie can be my co-pilot anytime. Long live Chewie, and if they ever do decide to kill him somewhere down the line, I'm just gonna be even more mad. So
Said like a true Star Wars fan. All right, where can the people find you, HB? Let's hear the spiel.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Mr. HB Gibson. You can also go to my YouTube channel. It's HB Gibson on YouTube. And let's see. I think I'm on. Am I on TikTok? Yes, I am. I'm on TikTok as well. It's based off of my show on YouTube. It's called Popcorn, Coffee, and Joysticks. And I pretty much everything that I do pretty much, goes in pretty much that order. I have popcorn because I love movies, coffee because I love to chat about stuff, and joysticks because I love video games. So there you
Fabulous.
go.
Fabulous.
Thanks.
I had such a good time today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for coming.
I
I
appreciate it.
anyone who wants to sit around and talk about Star Wars for 2 hours with me is on my good list.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got to do it again. Let me see. You choose the character.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's my show. I
Uh,
always choose
yeah.
the character. We will definitely I mean, it's a big galaxy, man.
Yeah.
Plenty of characters to do. You're always welcome back to Mind the Force.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Excellent. You take care, and we'll talk very soon.
Okay. All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Well, you heard us, people. That's the end of Star Wars. It's all about one guy trying to live forever and screwing over everyone else to do it. Story done. You can all go home. Just kidding. There's always more Star Wars to nerd out on, especially here at Mind the Force. In fact, we're not even done talking about the wisest Wookiee on the block. In fact, this lovely interlude brings us to our mental health condition assessment, where I had the absolute pleasure to speak with Julie Christiansen. Julie is an author, international speaker, psychotherapist, and executive coach. She has an extensive background in mental health counseling and public speaking that spans almost 30 years. Julie holds a BA in psychology and an MA in counseling psychology and is registered with the College of Psychotherapists of Ontario. Julie has authored 15 books, including Anger Solutions, I Don't Feel So Good, and The Rise of Rage, Leadership Aim, and The Essential Soft Skills for Effective Leadership. Without further ado, please welcome Julie Christensen. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to be here with you.
Oh, we're so excited to have you on. I'm excited to get into Chewbacca. I'm excited to hear about your new book, The Rise of Rage. It's very cool to have an author on. I think you might be my first proper author.
Oh, super cool.
Very exciting. Also, for those listening, for the first time, I can see my guest. You can't see her because we haven't gotten to that point of technology yet on our platform, but it's so nice to see someone's smiling face while I sit here and talk to them.
Yes.
So before we get into our condition assessment of Mr. Chewbacca, son of Atachuk, which is how he frequently introduces himself, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Star Wars, Julie.
Well, I mean, I am a Gen X. So that means I've seen the original, what they call episodes 3 to 6. We call them episodes 1 to 3. So we've seen the originals and probably seen them several times. And then when the next generation of Star Wars came out, watched all of those. Gosh, I think we've seen everything that Disney has put out
Nice.
recently. So we've watched The Mandalorian and then, the more recent movies, and I'm terrible with names. So
It's
I
okay.
cannot tell you the names of any of of the more recent movies, but we have seen them.
It's okay. You know what? I find that sometimes I remember like the episode 7 is The Force Awakens and then episode 9 is The Last Jedi. But I always forget the one in the middle.
Yeah, I
And I have
honestly
a
I
whole
couldn't tell
show,
you.
so it's do not feel bad. I never
Yeah.
remember the name of episode 8. I'm like, it's the one in between. Stuff happens, more stuff
Right,
happens,
yeah, yeah, the one where everybody dies, yes, that one.
right? The one where everyone dies. Like,
Yeah,
well, I think that's when I think episode 7 Han dies, and then episode 8 Leia dies, but you're just like, what's going on? Why
yeah,
are all these people dying?
yeah. It's like Game of Thrones all over again.
Oh my god, it has a very similar emotional,
Yeah,
like, chest stab
yeah,
as Game of Thrones.
yeah,
It is. I mean, that's how they keep you coming back. It's like, who are they gonna kill off now? No one's safe.
exactly. Yeah,
There's no safety in main character status at all.
right, yeah, but Chewie lives on.
Chewie does live on, and it's been really fun to delve into this character because so much I didn't know about Chewie. Like I always heard, like of course we know him in the canon content that like he sees Han die and like he continues on like with all the rest of the rebels. But actually in the Legends content, which is the novel and comic book content mostly,
Mhm.
he dies. He died right before the premiere of The Phantom Menace.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they killed him off in a novel, and then pretty much the comic book series that came out right after that, kind of in conjunction, was almost like R2-D2 and C-3PO were going around getting like an oral history of Chewie's friends. So they spoke with Chewie's wife and his father and like people he came across in his adventures, of course, as well as like Luke and Han and Leia. And it was really cool to see like these different stories about him, but it was very sad.
Mm,
It's definitely
yeah,
very sad. And at the time, I've read just fans' reactions were like, oh my god, what did they do? Though I do feel it was more appropriate than the movie reactions to Han dying because I think everyone agrees Chewie would have been far more devastated. Him and Leia would have had a moment, and unfortunately, the movies didn't deliver that to us.
yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah, which is okay. Nothing's perfect. We're
Yeah, and
we're
of course, if you really wanna get the full impact of any story, you have to read the book.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a big galaxy, Julie. It's a huge galaxy, and there's so much content out there to nerd out on. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm very excited to get into this. So I, as always, sent you a condition assessment
Mhm.
for what I want to kind of go through about Chewbacca. Like these are like the thoughts that I had thinking about his bigger storyline and kind of I guess what I read from Wookie society and particularly his relationship with Han. And because I feel and actually I only sent you one. Usually I'll send 2, sometimes 3, but I thought it was such a big theme. And I'm like, "We can fill an hour on this. This will be great."
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, no, we're gonna get into scenario 1 for all of you, and then we're gonna get Julie's very professional thoughts on it. One of the main points of Chewbacca's storyline is the origins of his relationship with Han Solo. Simply put, Han saves Chewbacca's life, and in return, Chewbacca owes him a life debt. The concept of a life debt is a social institution found in many honor based societies. If a person's life was saved by another, and the saved person was obligated to pledge their life to protecting and looking after their savior, even to the point of sacrificing their own life if necessary. On one side of things, Chewbacca's life debt reflects the deep rooted values of Wookiee society, where honor and loyalty are paramount. In honoring his pledge to Han Solo, Chewbacca upholds not only a personal commitment, but also the collective honor of his people. It is also of note that his life debt to Han did not end with the other one's death, as most do. In canon content, Chewie continues his life debt in service to Leia and Han's children after Han dies, and in Legends content, after Chewie's death, his son and nephew continue Chewie's life debt to Han and his family. But does Chewie truly have agency in this arrangement? Could his life debt be seen as a form of servitude imposed upon him by Han Solo? True honor lies in freely chosen actions, not obligations forced upon individuals. Is the practice practical? Chewbacca spends the majority of his time traveling with Han instead of being home with his family on Kashyyyk, sometimes resulting in a failure to protect them from the dangers of the Empire and other enemies. Even his own wife accepts that this is a sad but unquestionable reality, all because of the life debt her husband owes Han Solo. It is a rarely questioned foundation of what seems to be, from the outside, a loving and deep rooted partnership between Han and Chewbacca. But what might be at the core of this kind of commitment? As you can see, we deeply overthink Star Wars here.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a heavy thing. I mean, once I learned how old and wise and experienced Chewbacca was, I was like, why is he just following Han around? Just doing whatever he says, but that's the life debt for you. And I thought it was a very interesting concept to get into.
Yeah, so, all right, let's get into it. Where do you wanna
Yeah.
start?
Well, I want to start. What do you think? What are you seeing from your professional perspective?
Well, I definitely the cultural value that Chewie's race places on life debts, I think are rooted in the things that they value most, right? So loyalty obviously is something that they value very highly, but above loyalty, above all other things, I think they value life. And so if someone sacrifices themselves to save your life, then you owe them that debt of loyalty, you know? And I guess if I were to look at it in terms of the way that particularly Western culture operates, I don't owe you anything ever, ever, so it's hard for us to really conceptualize what that would be like. But for more collectivist societies, I don't think it would be so strange to think that if if you saved my life, that I and my family and my community by extension owe you a debt because you preserved the thing that we hold most precious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, it's not that strange. And I don't actually I never have conceived Chewie as someone who just followed Han around, more that he was almost like an equal partner. And he's like the Jiminy Cricket of Star Wars, you know, he's the conscience, right? That keeps people cool under pressure. And then when he's losing his mind, someone's always there to be like, okay, you know, okay, big guy, like it's all right. You know? So I felt like there was a real reciprocal love and affection and respect between the two of them. I don't think Han would have been Han Solo without Chewie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
Um, but also Chewie wouldn't have been Chewie without Han. So,
Right.
there's a certain amount of reciprocity in that relationship, which I think is really beautiful, actually, because, like I said, excuse me, in an individualistic society like we have here in the West, we really only care about ourselves and ourselves first. And caring about everyone else really only happens if our needs are met first. You know, like individualistic society is not about necessarily the greater good. It's about what's good for me. It's a very selfish cultural construct. And I honestly don't love it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't love it because as a therapist, of course, I can see how painful that is for people when the people in their circle, whether that's in a work environment or a family environment or a religious environment or, you know, church community, whatever that is, when people put their own needs above the needs of others, even when they can see that the needs of others are more important or
Yeah.
more pressing than their own personal needs. And it causes these really deep societal rifts,
Mhm.
which is why I think perhaps Chewie's wife and kids were like, you know, we're cool with this. Like, we're happy to make the sacrifice because we wouldn't have him alive if Han hadn't saved him. We would
Yeah.
rather him be alive and traveling the galaxy than dead and us having to, you know, stare at his urn or whatever their cultural
Yeah.
practices for burial were. You know, we would rather have him alive and know that we can still talk to him and that we can still communicate with him and that we can still see him once in a while than not have him with us at all.
And I agree. That's definitely an excellent point. And I like that you brought up the real differences between individualist and collective societies because that's really where my mind went when I thought about just I guess the foundations of Wookiee culture. And of course how Star Wars is like really pulled from reality in real life and what George Lucas's influences are as far as Star Wars coming from different cultures and religions and lifestyles. And yes, in the West, we definitely do have a very individualistic societies. I even think about I don't know why my mind goes to this, but like think about like the Industrial Revolution and like the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and like all these very like self-made men who are like, okay, I need to build what I need to build and I don't know, kind of like so like individually focused that it wasn't like no one else mattered. It's like, okay, I need to build my wealth on the back of like my efforts and my sweat. And yes, it'll take care of my family and they have those legacies, but there isn't much outside like collective, I don't know, I guess like growing. Like really what
Yeah.
they cared about was building their legacy while you see cultures like I think of like Middle Eastern culture and particularly like Japanese culture and societies that are very honor driven,
Mhm.
like in good ways and bad ways. But there's really just that there's more of that sense of community, that sense of collectivism and okay, like everything we do is for the good of everyone. Like this is like the honor of not only my family but my village and my people and my nation. And yeah, no, we don't have that in the West, particularly in even in modern times where obviously we live in a very divisive time
Yeah.
right now.
Mhm.
I think it's more about the individual than it ever has been before.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that that lends itself to the increase in anger and aggression and divisiveness and all the things that we see in the world right now. It's because everybody thinks that their opinion is the most important opinion. And like, just with the advent of the internet and online news and comments and, and social media and all the ways that now I can express my most important opinion, and I can troll people and I can say things that are incredibly horrible and hurtful and hide behind the shield of anonymity.
Right.
So I can, I'm like, if we were to use the Star Wars analogy, like I'm a Death Star, right? I'm a
Yeah.
Death Star and I can destroy a planet from 1,000 light years away, and I never have to see your face. I never have to look you in the eye. I never have to see how this devastates you. I can be distant from it. And that's what the internet has given us, I think. Among all the things that it does that are good, I think that is the way that the internet has become weaponized, in that I can destroy somebody half a world away
Yeah.
and carry on with my day, right? Like I could do it while I'm eating coffee and a donut,
Yeah.
right? And just type the most hurtful, terrible things that can literally destroy a life. I mean, how many people in the last year have completed suicide because of the way that they were treated online? And
Yeah.
that, I think, has a direct line to this individualistic idea that my ideas are more important than you. And so if I think you're fat, I'm just going to come out and tell you. If I think that you look like a man, I'm just going to come out and tell you. If I think that you're this or that or whatever, I'm just going to come out and tell you. And I don't care, because my opinion is more important than your feelings. And that's a problem, right?
Right.
A widespread problem.
Like there's no real consequences. Actually, I was listening to your podcast, Freedomology, and you had a great episode where you interviewed, what was her name? Crystal Schneider.
Yeah.
About she works primarily with like sex trafficking
Yeah.
victims. And I found that episode very fascinating, especially when you guys talked about like the effects of really online sex trafficking, like where people are being exploited literally like you said from like across the world,
Yeah.
like whether it's manipulating young people or like whatever the situation is, and the person never even touches you. It's all through the internet.
Mhm.
um and your Death Star analogy is now the pinnacle of Mind the Force analogies. That is numero uno, the best thing that anyone has said as far as linking Star Wars to real life. I'm going to steal that. I will credit you every time, I promise. But it really is like you're causing all this damage from far away, and I never really have to reap the ethical consequences of that. Like
Right.
I don't you're a face or a name on a screen. You
Mhm.
mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
I feel like we're even becoming more detached as we see things with AI start to pop up more. Like
Yeah.
you have entire social media influencers that aren't real. Like they're not real.
Yeah.
And I feel like it adds, what we do well collectively is dissociate. It adds to the collective dissociation that we all have from reality and our interactions with others.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's just, honestly, it makes me so sad, when I think about how these tools were originally created to help us feel more connected.
Right.
And over COVID, I think there was equal parts connection and equal parts division. Because many of us, my own family included, used Zoom to connect for special holidays because we couldn't go
Yeah.
anywhere, we couldn't see anyone. So we get the whole family on Zoom and we
Yep.
check in and be, what's new, who's pregnant, what's going on, who's getting married, all those things. But it also proved to be a tool to tear people apart.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, like even just I think about the Black Lives Matter movement and how divisive that has become, and the repercussions of that. We're still feeling that now with the dismantling of critical race theory and DEI and like all of these
Yeah.
things under attack now. It's like you're telling me that the scholarship fund that they developed to honor George Floyd, now you're gonna say that that is reverse racism because white kids can't apply? Hang on a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
Hang on. What is happening here, you know?
Yeah. It's I feel like what's very common now, it's almost like a bad game of telephone. Like, messages just get so muddled and so cogged up with other things, and I don't know, you have ABC that matters, but you start filtering in, like, D, E, F, G, and you lose the message, you lose the point, which is very sad because then the people who should have benefited from that, like, they're the ones that really hurt at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And, it's just it's all a lot. It's really just all politics and bureaucracy at the end of the day.
It really is, and, and to a certain extent, and I hate to say this, but again, we're talking Star Wars here, so I think all the Star Wars aficionados will understand, it is a form of mind control. Like, if we can deep fake everything and, AI is now driving influencers and doing all this kind of stuff, and people like, there's somebody on that keeps showing up on my Instagram that doesn't even write books. But she's promoting herself as an expert in making loads of money on Amazon by basically punking other people's work, rewriting it,
Mm.
and, she puts it through AI, she creates her own thing, and then she sells these little mini ebooks, and I'm like, "Girl, you're making money off of plagiarism,
Right?
and you're bragging about it and teaching other people how to do that. Meanwhile, I take, 30 days, 90 days, whatever, to pour my heart into a book and take 2 years to get it published. And you're like, "I don't even write the books myself."
Right.
I just and I'm like, no wonder people are just, like, coming apart at the seams because number 1, how do I know what's real? Like, as someone who lives in the world of publishing, aside from the other work that I do, when I buy a book, now I buy a book when I have listened to the author speak. I've seen them on a podcast or listened to them on a radio interview. I'm confident that they're a real person, right?
Right.
And that their experience is legit. I'll buy that book.
Right.
But I'm not buying just some random thing because now I don't know if this
Right.
is a real person or if it's not. How do I know that their opinion is to be trusted? How do I know that they're not just trying to indoctrinate me into something? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Did
So,
ChatGPT write this book? I don't know.
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, and so that level of distrust, I think, just keeps rising,
Yeah.
as people consume the news and they hear all these conspiracy theorists and then, QAnon has their opinions and everybody's got stuff coming out. How do
Yeah.
you know what's real and what's not real? How do you know what to trust?
Right. There's a lot of noise. There's a
So
lot of noise. And social media, like you said, there's so many pros. Like, you think about all these, like, beautiful stories you hear about people reuniting or people being able to connect, and
mhm,
that's beautiful. That's
yeah,
beautiful, and that can never be taken away, but there is this really dark side where, like, people get their news from memes and
yeah,
from just whatever they see on the internet. They're
yeah,
not questioning it as much as they
yeah,
should, and I'm like, "I could write whatever I want on the internet,
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be true." Like, you should fact check these things
yeah,
because then people take it as gospel,
mhm,
and then they go out and they, like, spread these ideas or they spread these things that might not be true, and we have all sorts of things. We have information in war zones that isn't being correctly reported. We
yeah,
have elections being defrauded. We have foreign nations influencing our politics and how we interact with each other, like
yeah,
we said, from the other side of the world.
mhm,
Like, just Death
yeah,
Star lasering us from the other side of the
yeah,
world, really for the power and influence of others. Like,
mhm.
it's a very we're all just being Palpatined all over the place.
Yes, yeah, like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking if the internet is the force, the dark side definitely has gained some ground over the last 5 to 10 years.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, it's called the dark web for a reason,
Right? Yeah.
right? And it's but it is a very it is a very Western thing. I feel
Mhm.
like there's still so many cultures out there that remind me so much of the Wookiees that they are together as family. They're not as focused on the outside noise because
Mhm.
they have their community. They have like extended generations. They have, which I feel like we see a lot in the United States, but it's usually being pulled from other cultures. Like it's not a Western culture thing. They're bringing their other culture thing and just living here.
Yeah.
Because democracy, I guess. Um, and but it's so interesting to see, like whether it's modern day or even just like historical. Like I thought a lot about Japanese culture when I thought about an honor driven society, like whether it's modern day, but very much like feudal Japan, like
Mhm.
back in the past, like days of like samurais
Yes.
and emperor regimes. Um,
Very honor-bound society.
exactly, like to
Yeah.
a fault, of course. Like
Mhm.
there were times where maybe we in the West would say like, "Oh, that went a little too far. I don't think you had to seppuku
Mm.
yourself because of family honor. It's maybe a
Yeah.
little extreme." But
Mhm.
but it was that foundation that really kept their society going and kept them focused on the bigger picture. And that's what I think a lot of us lose, that I think Chewie as a character represented was the importance of the bigger picture.
Yes.
Even just from the sense of being older and like having lived an experience. Like by the time he met Han, he was 190 years old.
Wow. I did
Yeah,
not.
no, I didn't know that either, that Wookiees average, like, 400 years for their life, and I think that's why across content, when anyone, like, encounters a Wookiee, it's like, "Whoa, it's a Wookiee," because they're, like, this almost, like, legendary race of people,
Yeah.
um, that really just hail from one place and, like, they're one culture and one society, and they live so long, and so they're almost like this thing of legend, and so he was only middle age by the time he met
Mm.
Han, but he had lived so much life. He'd lived
Yeah.
so much life and done so many things. He had, like, been a leader of his community and a general and was so used to, I guess, being a voice of reason. Like, he almost, I mean, maybe in a way he almost saw Han like a child. Like, "I have
Mhm.
to help guide you." Like, you don't always know the best thing to do or the best approach, or you might get angry or emotional, and Chewie was able to, like, walk him back. Like you said, like a partnership.
Mhm.
Um, because then in the rare instances where Chewie would get mad, he then, I think even more so, had to have a lot of self-regulation because he is so powerful and so strong.
Yeah.
Like he's this like big like warrior, and but I think he knows that from experiences I just read like throughout his storyline, different battles and like confrontations he experienced, that he knew that his strength could really harm people, that he knew he could really have like a damaging effect. So he's like, okay, I have to regulate myself. And so I think that really added to his interactions with Han and with others because he was able to
Mhm.
see that bigger picture and things that really mattered.
Yeah, and that is so important. I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that this is one of the key things that I try to communicate. Hopefully, I communicate it well in The Rise of Rage is this idea of the not just the importance of self-regulation, but the reasons why. You know, I tell my clients often, and I can't remember if I write about it in the book or not, but I often tell my clients that when I get to a point where I'm extremely angry, I stop talking. And it's not because I'm trying to punish you with my silence, and it's not because I don't have things to say, it's because I'm very good with words, and I can cut you really deeply with my words. And knowing that I have that power, I choose not to use it, right? And I think that it doesn't mean that I'm better at regulating than other people. I'm just mindful of the
Mhm.
fact that once that thing is said, I can't take it back. And there's
Yeah.
been enough things that I've said that I can't get back that now I know, like I'm really good with words and I could shred you to bits if I really wanted to, but I choose not to be that person. So I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to process my own thoughts until I feel like I can speak to the problem rather than attacking the person. And the fact that Chewy has that innate ability to look inside and go, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm more powerful. But I just because I am doesn't mean that I have to use all of that in this instance. I think that's an exceptional example of how we can all learn to embrace our power,
Yeah.
but not necessarily wield it all the time. Like they say that power is like underwear. You wear it all the time, but you don't have to show it to everybody.
I've never heard that before, but I love that. That's good. That you're hitting it with the analogies today, Julie. You got the stuff. I like it.
I often speak in riddles, so I apologize.
No, I love it. I too tend to I can be very flowery with my language. Like I think I watch a lot of too much like period shows that I sometimes like speak
Bridgerton?
like particular. Oh, of course, Bridgerton, of course. Um, and no, I too sometimes speak in ways that people are like, "Are you 80 years old?" I'm like, "No, I just like to talk that way. Just roll with it. Just roll." Um, but it's so interesting. Funny enough, what you said about Chewie about like having the power, but like knowing how to wield it. It's funny that it actually makes me think that he might be a non-force user that might be the most similar to the Jedi in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And that they know, I mean, of course, except for Anakin, who falls to the dark side. Poor guy. That they have so much power and they know this. And that's like part of, I guess, their more pacifist relationship with the Force that they know, like, yes, I have this power and and it can go there, but I know the dangers of going there.
Right.
So I rein it in and I keep it back and I stay grounded with what I know. And that's how I have to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I often say to myself, again, I use a lot of my own experience, in therapy.
I mean, what else could
Um
you pull from?
exactly, right? We
Yeah.
know ourselves best. But I made a decision some years ago that I was not going to allow the actions or the words of other people to I wasn't gonna allow those things to make me behave in a way that was inconsistent with the person that I wanna be. Like, I choose to be a certain type of person. I choose to be kind. I choose to be compassionate. I choose to be empathetic. I choose to be fair, right? And nothing that you do is going to make me deviate from the person that I choose to be. So you can be a liar, you can betray me, you can do whatever. And the thing is, because of my reputation as the anger lady, right? As somebody who specializes in talking about anger and emotional regulation and all these sorts of things, every now and again people come into my life and I feel like they try purposefully to test me to see if I am truly who I say I am.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, they will push the buttons and they'll turn on the narcissism and the gaslighting and all the things, and I have learned now just to kinda sit back, and other people will be like, "Are you not seeing this?" I'm like, "Mhm, yeah, I see it."
Right.
"Why aren't you doing something?" I'm like, "I'm just paying attention."
That's
Oh,
the best thing we can do.
I'm
I
I'm just paying
I
attention.
I 100% agree, especially on the point of being kind. It's important to be kind.
Mhm.
Um, and like I was raised by a very wonderful family and we like being kind people and there's benefits to that. Even from I guess like more of a spiritual point of view,
Yes.
like that's my karma. Like if you
Mhm.
want to do whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
okay, that's your karma. That has
Mhm.
nothing to do with me. I can only control my actions and my reactions and I can get upset and I can get mad, but I don't find that that serves me well. It
It really
doesn't
doesn't.
bring anything to my table. Like it doesn't make me feel good.
Mhm.
It certainly doesn't make me feel good. Like Like, the negative interactions of anger and stress, even just on the body, oh my god, it's terrible for you.
Yeah. And I
Absolutely terrible.
mean, the anger is there to let us know that there's a problem,
Yeah,
right? But I don't need to solve that problem by coming out with my claws and doing all the things, right? Like, I don't have to come at you with my knives out.
yeah,
I am constantly reminding people that they should not mistake my kindness for weakness. I'm kind to you because that's who I am.
right? It's a
But
choice.
don't misunderstand my kindness. Like I
Yeah.
love how Priscilla Shearer, I don't know if you've seen the little clip of her saying, like, I love me some Jesus and I'm patient and I'm kind and I let things run off of me. But if I find out, if I find out that you've been scheming, that you've been watching me, looking for ways to hurt me, come at my family. If that's a war you want, that's a war you're gonna have. And I'm like, sis, I'm here for that. Because, you know, like I think that I can still be kind and compassionate and fight,
Yeah,
right? I'm gonna fight you with kindness. I mean, I've seen it over and over again where I literally tear someone apart by being kind to them because what they really want is to be able to go to everybody they know and say, "You see, she's not who she says she is. I did this to her and she came at me like da 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 da, right? And she
mhm,
treated me this way and she did this to me and she said that to me." And I'm just like, "Mm-mm,
right,
no,
you're not
don't
gonna
do
get
that.
me.
I'm gonna kill you with kindness. I'm gonna treat you kindly. I'm gonna be compassionate. I'm gonna be empathetic. It doesn't mean I'm not hurt. And it doesn't mean that I'm not angry. It's just that I'm being strategic in how I'm working with you because my reputation and my self-worth means more to me than this stupid petty fight that you're trying to start with me over here. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like Chewy is certainly a lot like that in
Mhm.
that he's like, I know what I'm capable of, but I don't need to do that right now.
Right, I don't need to take it there. Also, I'm sure as like in your personal actions, because you can also put on your therapy lens and see like, like, I mean, hurt people. And so it's
Yeah,
like, you're just reacting like this because of X, Y, and Z insecurity. This actually has nothing to do with me. Like
exactly.
this is coming from a whole other place. And so the reaction isn't even warranted because I'm not even who you're mad at.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's projection, right? Like I'm just
yeah,
or transference or whatever you want to call it. Like it's just
yeah.
I'm just putting this on you because you're convenient and you seem like you're willing to take it. And
Right?
there's
Like,
the error. I'm not
right?
willing to take it. I'm just not willing to compromise myself
Yeah.
and my integrity because you're being weird.
Right? Like, it's not worth the energy. Like, it's not at the forefront like, it's not the forefront of my priorities, so, like, why am I going to let you pull me into that? It's unnecessary.
Mhm.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think Chewy would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
The, just whether it's collective society or, like, really, like, Wookiee's connection with nature, like, they have a very, like, in tune connection where I don't think it goes as far as, like, the Force. You have a few Force sensitive Wookiees, but not a lot. But even the way that their culture lives their life, they live in the trees and their homes are so, like, intertwined with nature and with preserving the environment and really respecting the world around them. Like, how
Mhm.
they respect life in the sense of, like, they're alive and, like, their families, but also just the nature and the life around them. They know it's all important, they know it's all part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Um so not quite force sensitive as some other species tend to be even without relation to the Jedi, but certainly there's a strong environmental message there. It's
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, for coming at it from a psychological perspective, having that close relationship with nature and the way that they live keeps them more grounded. And when you're more grounded, it's easier to regulate,
Oh,
so like all those
definitely.
things come together.
Definitely, because 'cause they're able to see what really matters, like the little things, and they have so many examples where even in his interactions sometimes with other Wookiees, that Chewie is just the emotionally grounded one. Like, because they could be angry, like, about a certain problem, or they could be spatting with each other. Like, it really there's this one scenario where it really shows kind of the darker side of an honor-based society, where you have all these different Wookiees in captivity are like battling with each other, being like, "Oh, well, my family doesn't like your family, so like we can't be friends," and like kind of like those like feuding families, very
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet, like just ridiculous. And Chewie comes into the situation where they're all in captivity, they've all been captured by this slaver. And he looks at them like, "What are you guys talking about? Like, this doesn't matter. Like, you're in chains. Like, why are you arguing about like these family feuds that don't matter? We should band together and defeat the person who captured us to regain our freedom. Like you have your squabbles, but you're in captivity. Like what are you doing?" What's He's frequently that voice of reason, that grounding emotional presence.
Mhm.
Even amongst his own people, which is why he's such an important leader amongst his own people.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think that, again, something I didn't know about him, but it makes sense given how he's portrayed in the films. But I love that for him because somebody, and I can't say this strongly enough, somebody has to be the voice of reason in the midst of chaos.
Right?
Somebody has to be.
Somebody has to be, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we don't have these days. Like,
It's hard
whereas
to find it because, like you
the
say,
same.
there's so much noise, right?
Yeah,
Like, there's so much noise. How do you know that the voice of reason is the voice of reason?
right? It's like it's so hard because we're also focused on what we feel we know, because we're sometimes almost it's almost too much feeling sometimes, where it's like you can't, like, you're so caught up in the emotional that you can't take that step back and
Yeah.
look at the bigger picture and take a more logical sense of things.
Mhm.
Um, and we get so driven by emotion that, yeah, if we hear the voice of reason, we almost can't hear it. It goes in one ear and out the
Yes.
other.
Yeah, and I think that's, going back to just Wookiee lifestyle in general, I think that's why it's so important more now than ever for people to explore their relationships with technology. I write a chapter about this in the book. The chapter is called "There's an App for That," and it talks about all the ways in which technology actually contributes to emotional dysregulation. And I think it's important that we understand that every problem that we have is a relationship problem. And so if you are having difficulty regulating, if you're having difficulty disconnecting from your phone, if you are spending 4 hours a day engaging with pornography on the internet or through your phone, that's a relationship problem, right? So you need to do some work on that relationship. And maybe it means that you distance yourself from that device, you know? And so I kind of have like I have these built-in things, sort of like built-in boundaries that I have with my phone. Number one, my phone is always on silent.
Mm,
If my phone rings and I pick it up, it's because I actually saw on the screen that someone was calling. I do not typically pick up calls.
interesting.
Um, yeah, well, partly because I'm constantly in session and it's
Yeah,
disturbing, but
yeah,
just as a habit now, I have all the alerts off because early in the days of smartphones, I was so addicted to notifications that I was getting phantom vibrations and there were no notifications, but I was so geared to I need to have a notification, I need to get a text message every so many minutes that I was starting to get phantom vibes from my BlackBerry, and I was like, "Okay, enough. This has
yeah.
to stop."
Right, like you
So
hear
I
your ringtone and there's no ringtone.
nothing, yeah. So my phone is on silent all the time, 24/7. I
Mm.
have games on my phone. I play until I lose, or I play until I win,
Okay.
right? Either way, so, like, if I can win and go up to the next level, I'm done.
Yeah.
If I play until I've run out of lives, I'm done. And then, it's over. I don't buy more time or, any of those things that the algorithm would like you to do so that you stay engaged with it, because I'm not here to get addicted to phone games, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not my purpose in life. But it really requires, again, a strong sense of self-determination, because the algorithms are built in the same way to keep us engaged as they do with online gambling or with casino gambling, right? It's
Yep.
partial, what is it? Partial intermittent reinforcement,
Mm.
right? So we'll let you win just enough that you'll want to keep playing.
Right.
We'll give you just enough likes and shares. We'll give you just enough content to make you go, "Oh, I need to keep engaging with that." Right?
Yep.
So next thing you know, you've wasted 2 hours doom scrolling through TikTok, and for what?
Right, you've gained nothing, and yeah, it's I mean, it's addiction.
It is,
It's all mental addiction. It's feeding something. It's you might as well shoot up some crack because it's
right?
doing something very
Well,
similar to your
let me
right,
just say
right?
this, but at least, the phone isn't getting into your bloodstream and doing things to your brain cells.
That's
So on
true.
that
That's
sense,
true.
I mean, it is doing things to your brain cells, but not in the same way that
Like,
substances would.
yes,
But
yes.
it is a similar interactions and similar mechanisms that are being activated in the brain.
Yep,
And they know this, right? Because in my research for the book, I actually came across a former Facebook executive who quit Facebook because he was like, I could not, in good conscience, continue to create these programs and these algorithms that are creating addiction in people.
yep,
Couldn't do it. So we know that they're there. I mean, that's the only way they can keep us engaged, right? Is to give us that partial intermittent reinforcement. But if we're not conscious of it, we're like, "Oh, I just wanna be in contact with my friends." How many of your friends have you actually interacted with on Facebook lately
right.
versus the ads that you've seen and the fake news stories that are being told and the videos, the reels, the short? Like, you're not actually interacting with your peers, you're just consuming meaningless content.
Yeah,
So it no longer serves the purpose for which it was created. Well, they tell us it was created to keep us connected with our friends, but really it's just a way for them to continue to bombard us with useless information and ads so that they can make money,
yep.
right?
No, 100%. It's part of the greed machine,
Yeah.
and we just feed it. We
Yeah,
feed it
the same
because
way
we
it's the
feed it
same
like
way that people used to feed the factories, right? Yet people
mhm,
by the hundreds and the thousands going into these factories, and if one dropped dead, there's another one to hire tomorrow. That was how the money was made during the Industrial Revolution. Well, now this is the technological revolution or the information revolution, whatever you want to call it. I should say the misinformation revolution.
haha.
And we are once again, walking into the internet factories like cattle and just consuming all the content and feeding the corporations that are benefiting from our consumption. Like, it's not for us.
Yep.
And
No, it
so
is not.
if we're not aware of this, it's like, the empire and, all of these different alliances, how do you know which one you should trust? Pay attention to the things that they're saying. Don't just buy into the propaganda.
Exactly, like, look at the man behind the curtain and, like,
Exactly.
actually do your best to understand what is going on. And yeah, just do our best to filter through the noise. Because I mean, you have even like you mentioned, like QAnon, all these conspiracy theories, and it's so hard because you hear like A, B, and C sounds crazy because it sounds crazy, but then like what if D is actually true, but you don't know because it can't filter through the noise of A, B, and C. And so it's like, wait, is that what's really going on? I love a good conspiracy theory, mostly because so many of them are sadly very plausible. But how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Like, how do you choose what your voice of reason is? And then we all have different voices of reason.
Yes. Yeah.
And that adds to the divisiveness, and I don't know, it's a very mixed pot.
Yeah, and I often say that there's no such thing as common sense. People will say, "Well, why don't they just, do use their common sense?" Like, there is no such thing. People
Yeah,
do what makes sense to them. Why would
exactly.
people shoot up crack? Why would people use crocodile? Are you familiar with
Right?
crocodile?
I watched that documentary. I'm very familiar with what crocodile is.
Why would
Like,
anybody do that?
it's made of gasoline.
Because
What?
somehow it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would never ever do that, right?
Yeah.
There are some people who grow up as children of alcoholics who become alcoholics, and their siblings are teetotalers. I will never drink. I will never consume drugs, never ever doing it. They both came out of the same household, but for one, turning to alcohol to solve their problems made sense. Whereas the other said turning to alcohol makes no sense at all because I've seen how it destroys families. I'm not doing that. Right. So when we talk about listening to the voice of reason, really what we're doing, and this is why misinformation is so potent, because there is someone out there who is going to think like you,
Yeah.
and your rhetoric is going to make sense to them.
And with the
And
internet,
that's
they
what
can
leads
find
to
them.
the division, right?
Yeah. And it's all down to perspective. Like, even on two sides of the war, of any war, each side thinks that they're right.
Hmm.
Each side is fighting for their culture or their family or their belief. Really,
Right.
it's belief systems at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what they're fighting for. And they think that they are fighting the enemy. So that
Yeah.
someone is coming to take their belief and their way of life away.
Hmm.
And are either of them wrong? Are either of them right? I mean, these are, I mean, that's ethics at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And how can you say either one? Like, it's all depends on perspective.
Hmm. Yeah. And often, I think they're both right in the sense that they both want the same things. They
Right.
want freedom. They want autonomy. They want the ability to be self-directed as a society. They want to be able to let their children play in the street in peace. They want the same things, but somehow they've come to believe that the people they're fighting are against them having those things. And so the only way for us to have those things is for us to defeat this enemy, when in fact they all want to live in peace.
Yeah.
So it just sometimes when I think about the paradox of war, it makes my head spin.
Yeah. It's like it's terrible circle of like the snake eating its tail, and you're just going
Yeah.
around, and you're like, we are saying the same thing over and over again, and the only one benefiting are like the corporations and
Yeah. The
the
people in
company.
power.
Exactly, the people in power
Yeah.
are the only people benefiting from this at all.
The weapons
On
growers and all the things. Yeah. And it's the
Yep.
same thing even just down to like lawsuits, whether that's, a divorce or motor vehicle accident or a WSIB claim or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I'm constantly saying, look, if you if you don't feel completely committed to fighting for this, don't do it. Because in the end, the only person who's going to win is the lawyer,
Mhm.
right? By the time you've done all the things and you've made the claim and you've fought for 7 years and you've been followed around by private investigators and every aspect of your life has been picked apart under a microscope and you get your settlement, the only one who's going to feel any satisfaction at the end of that day is your lawyer because they're going to come and take 30% of whatever they got for you.
Yep.
What they get for you will not be what is worth the losses that you've incurred, right?
Yep.
So they're the ones that the people in power are the ones that will walk away happy with more cash lining their pockets. And you'll
Exactly.
end up with a couple of 100,000 that you have to manage your entire life with, you
Yeah.
know?
At the sacrifice of your peace.
Yes. Yeah,
The
it does make
thing
sense. But war, I think, is just it's like the macro version of that type of adversarial interaction. It's like we're gonna go do this. Whoever has the bigger weapons, whoever has the more people that they can sacrifice on the field of war, or the field of battle, that's who will win. No, nobody wins in that scenario
Yeah.
for the people who are in power.
Yep. Right? Like, the amount of people that go off to war to fight for the king, you don't matter, boo boo.
Yeah.
Like, it's this
Yeah.
is the only guy that matters, and you're co-signing that.
Yes.
You're basically co-signing that by marching off to war
Yeah.
for the sake of honor and
Yeah.
loyalty,
Yeah.
and in some ways, I mean, it's kinda like technology. In some ways, it could be beautiful, and in some ways, it can be the downfall of society.
Mhm. Yeah, I think war really is just another machine that we feed with rhetoric and propaganda and people,
Mm,
right? We feed it with people. When we run out of people, then it's like, oh well, maybe we should do some diplomacy. How about we start with diplomacy
right?
and we end with diplomacy?
Right.
Solve
Well
our problems like grown-ups instead of like 5-year-olds. How about we do that?
now with technology, we don't even need as many people as we used to. We can just,
Drones. Yeah.
fly a drone in there, solve all our problems.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
don't even need someone to fly a plane to drop a bomber. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a video
That's
game. It's like Ender's Game. You could go to war, you don't even know.
So we might not be sacrificing our own people, but we're sacrificing the ones on the other side. And that's
Yep.
still it's gross. I guess the other thing that we don't think about too, and I know this has nothing to do with Star Wars directly, but
Yeah,
um
we love a tangent here in Mind the Force.
yeah,
Go for it.
but even the use of drones has consequences because someone is operating those drones.
Yep.
And they're not just sending a drone in and doing a strike. They're sending drones in and they're watching the movements of those people.
Right?
They're paying attention. They're seeing them interact with their families as much as they're seeing them go to their secret clandestine meetings with the rebel forces or whatever it is that they're doing. They're watching
Mhm.
all of it. They're building a relationship with that person they're getting ready to kill.
Yeah.
Can't tell me that that doesn't have consequences in terms of mental health and post-traumatic stress and survivor guilt and all the rest of it,
Yeah. I
right?
feel like
Still damaging our people even though we're distancing them from the field of battle because they're still engaged.
yeah. Even I mean, I always find it so interesting how, genre and sci-fi, reflect on real life, whether it's, Star Wars or, another one of my favorite books is Ender's Game that was written back, I believe, in the '80s, set, far in the future, and basically they're using children as basically as, generals. Basically as, military generals, they're training these kids to be these, very methodical, tactical thinkers, and in the end, they take, the best of these kids and they have them do these war simulations with this, enemy race. I think they're either called, the bugs or something. There's some sort of other species that are at war with the human race, and they had them do these simulations, going to war with them in space and, having different, battleships and things like that. So very Star Wars-esque.
Mhm.
And in the end, they have this final simulation, and this child Ender, who's, the genius of all these kids, he ends up winning the war. He, leads his battalion to victory, and it's all his tactical, and he kills all the bugs. He, wipes them out completely. And what he finds out afterwards is that that was real. What he was directing and simulating were real ships in the field, against
Mhm.
this real war, and he wiped out this race, and it's, the falling out aftermath of that for him, because he's a child, and suddenly he and these children are put in these very adult, violent situations, and it's, the aftermath of, how he feels like he just wiped out an entire race.
Yeah.
And he did at one point kinda get to know them a little bit, through these simulations, he came to, understand them more and more through these
Mhm.
games that they had to play, and then in the end to find out that he, killed them all, he was devastated, and that's a big part of,
Yeah.
his storyline, and it
Mhm.
and it really reflects true on, these drone operators that come out later and say, I don't feel good about the work that I did. Yeah, I'm sitting in this camper thousands of miles away from like the devastation I just caused, but I still saw it. And
Yeah.
you still feel that.
Yes.
And then we just say, "Good job, soldier, go on home."
Right?
Like, here's your
Yeah.
bonus.
Yeah. Let me buy you a beer now that our shift is over. Like it just
Yeah,
icky.
it is icky. It is icky, and it's not really doing much for the human race, and this is why the aliens don't talk to us. Is, because 'cause we're probably just gonna blow ourselves up.
Yeah.
They're just like, "Yeah, all that nuclear energy you guys are messing around with, you should probably stop."
Right.
Probably stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
We are our own Death Star. We're just gonna like
we are our own Death
implode
Star.
from it all. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think that and you know what? I think if we had a voice of reason like Chewie, maybe we wouldn't be in such a terrible position.
Perhaps. Perhaps. I think at this point we would need several. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know if one would be enough to cut through the chatter and, all of the discordant voices that are trying to jockey for position in
Right?
the world today. Yeah. But I think, if each of us that have a little bit of sense and understand that just because we have power doesn't mean that we have to use it all the time. We don't have to show it off all the time.
Mhm.
Perhaps if each of us in our own communities can be that voice of reason, perhaps we can we can tip the scales back in the favor of the good side of the force. If you want to put it that way.
We are going to we always have hope, Julie.
Where there's
We
life,
always
there's
have
hope.
yes, always. I think that is a beautiful note to end on in Chewie's honor. Thank you so much for joining me today. Where can the people find you? Where can they find your new exciting book?
Right. So you can find the book anywhere that books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Chapters Indigo. It is available worldwide. So, if you're in the UK or New Zealand or wherever, and you're listening to this, if you go to your online bookseller, you'll be able to find it and order it that way. If you want to interact with me more closely, then you can follow me on Instagram. I am at Jules_Christensen, JULZ_Christensen. That's Christian, like the religion. And then you add SEN on the end. So Christian, SEN. And my websites are angersolution.com and leverageu.ca. So that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. It was very interesting. I wasn't, at the beginning, I wasn't sure. I'm like, am I going to be able to talk about Chewbacca for like an entire hour? But this went actually very quickly. And yeah, looking at his condition assessment gave me a lot of things to think about and to consider. And this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I had a lot of fun today. And who knows, maybe we can have you back for another episode. I can think of a couple of very angry Star Wars characters that we could have a great time parsing out.
I would love to do that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we'll talk very soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care. I think what I take away from all of this is that Chewbacca is basically the wisest figure in Star Wars. The calm and powerful voice of reason and seer of the bigger picture. Insert controversial opinion here. Possibly all the strength and wisdom of Yoda without the hubris that was the downfall of the Jedi Order. But more things to deep dive on later for that argument. But certainly food for thought, which is our specialty here at Mind the Force. I want to thank HB and Julie for joining me today. This was a delight, and I hope it brought a beloved character into a fresh light for some of you. I certainly know it did for me. You'll find HB Gibson on Instagram at Mr. HB Gibson. Also, check out the link tree in the episode caption for more info on where to find him and follow his work. And you'll find Julie at angersolution.com, where you'll find all her professional contact info, as well as socials, such as her IG at JULZ_Christiansen and all other social platforms. And check out her podcasts, Freedomology, and pick up a copy of her new book, The Rise of Rage, Harnessing the Most Misunderstood Emotion. Speaking of socials, don't forget to follow Mind the Force on all the socials and check us out on your favorite pod streamers. If you like what you hear, drop us 5 stars. As a new pod, every little bit helps. And always feel free to share any of your big Star Wars thoughts with me at mindtheforcepodcast@gmail.com or ping me on socials. I'm here for all the feels and all the smoke when it comes to Star Wars. Nothing would delight me more. I'm Kristine McPartlin, and this concludes episode 9 of Mind the Force. See you next time, and stay mindful.